What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Rooney Mara Eats a Pie, and welcome to another episode of Real Me and a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at the shit ton of Comic-Con news and trailers that have dropped throughout the week, plus some others that weren't Comic-Con related, and break them down for you guys, give you our thoughts, and we will have our reviews for the main course of today's episode of Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's new film, and A Ghost Story, directed by Texas native David Lowery, also from Pete's Dragon last year. So what will Joel and I think about these movies? What are we going to think about the Comic-Con news and just everything that has dropped this week? Well, you're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Real Me and a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where my co-host and I will talk about anything, everything, and, well, just anything about movies in general. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey, guys, listen, if you're searching on the internet for another movie podcast and you accidentally stumbled across this one, and you're like, what in the fuck is this shit? Well, I'm going to tell you what right now. We're the fucking best pieces of shit out there on the internet. That was a terrible opener, but that's okay, though, because we have a stacked show. I'm excited for this week, and if you are new to the show, welcome. Returning listeners, also welcome back. We always love you guys. What we usually do is we cover some news and trailers that have dropped throughout the week, commentate on them, and, of course, have our reviews of movies that come out on the following or the previous Friday. So, and then box office results for the weekend. On this week's episode, we are going to be doing the Christopher Nolan new film, Dunkirk, and then the David Lowery, Texas native director, for his new directed film, A Ghost Story. It's from the same director as Pete's Dragon. What a great fucking shift in tone. So, all right. So, just like I said in the beginning, we will be covering kind of some Comic-Con stuff, but for the most part, we're actually going to talk about most of that stuff next week in the trailers and whatnot, and whatnot, to kind of pad out some time for next week. So I'm just letting you guys know we're only doing some stuff that broke this weekend, but the rest will be for next weekend. And before we begin, please spread this around and let people know that this is a pretty damn good show to listen to, and like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. You guys know the drill. And speaking of my co-host, the guy in the corner, ready to just burst the seams with all the shit we're about to talk about, Joel, what's going on this week?
It's been a busy week for me. I've been, I mentioned that I'd been in a car accident, so I dropped my car off at the shop for that, and I've been driving around to rental since then. And my grandparents just arrived in town the other night, so busy week at work too. So we're getting ready for another sale. So we've got a bunch of stuff coming in and having to sort through that. Goodness me, it's been a busy time, but good week.
Yeah, I was like crying for Joel when I realized it was his week to do the notes, and I was like, oh, poor Joel. There's so much shit out there. I don't know how he's going to whittle everything down. Like, he probably had a brain aneurysm, but that's okay, though. Like, he's not dead yet. So until he actually dies, like, I'm still going to continue to, like, hopefully put him on the weeks where they're the busiest, because it's just funny to watch him squirm. But then again, it's funny, like, when shit breaks, like, throughout the week, and it's my turn, I'm sure Joel, like, smirks and likes to see me squirm. So it's it goes both ways. But yeah, my week is pretty great. I got a haircut. I'm feeling funky fresh with a PH, if you catch my drift, yo. And then also, I'm meeting up with someone I met on a dating site on Wednesday. So, I'm in a good fucking mood. So please don't ruin it, Joel. Don't ruin it, Joel. That's all I'm saying. So, all right. So
make it my job to ruin it. I'm just kidding.
You can make it your job to sit on a fucking rusty pipe, you jackass. All right. So that was a little aggressive. I'm a little hyped up, guys, because we got a couple of great movies to watch, or not watch, to talk about. But we got a lot of stuff, news and trailer-wise, that I'm excited to kind of dive into. So without any further ado, this is Joel's show since he did the notes on it. So Joel, let's MC this bitch. What do we got first?
Yeah, so this is a crazy week, and I will tell you, so there are a couple of these news bits that kind of sort of broke at Comic-Con, or right before, like as part of a package, but none of the trailers that we'll talk about later on come from Comic-Con. Yes, I know that there were a bunch that came yesterday, But honestly, like the previous week was insane with news. It was insane. So I just decided, you know what? For the purposes, because we have a huge episode already with two movies, for the purposes of, trying to not make this a 4.5 hour podcast, we should probably go ahead and push those off to next week. Next week only has one movie, so it'll be easier. But yeah, so with our first bit of news, I guess I'll go ahead and go first this time. So there is I think it's like a video game. Yeah, it's from Capcom. It's a video game called Mega Man. I remember playing this a couple of times at arcades. I never played it in a home setting, but it was fairly fun those couple of times. I wasn't an arcade visitor so much, but I was, I went to like bowling alleys and they had the arcades in the lobby and all that. And Mega Man was one of those games from Capcom that you'd run across for at least a few years. And we just found out that the directors of one of the best Is It or Isn't It documentaries of the decade so far, Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, who made Catfish back in 2010, are going to be writing and directing an adaptation of this. This is after they've done a couple of bigwig projects. They did a couple of Paranormal Activity movies. They did that movie Nerve last year, which I didn't like at all, but nevertheless, it got their foot in the door to make something like this. And it's going to be coming from Churn and Entertainment and producer Masi Oka. This is interesting because Masi Oka played Hero on Heroes. Y'all remember that show from the mid-2000s that was good for like a season and a half and then not good. He was the best part of that show consistently, and he has moved, I guess, into producing, and he'll be one of the producers on this. And so yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat to see a couple of directors who started out small, with controlled kind of budgets, very controlled budgets, move into this big mega blockbuster arena. I always like seeing this happen. Speaking of Pete's Dragon, we saw that happen. David Lowery started out with a Western set in Texas called Eighth and Body Saints, then moved on to a big Disney movie. And, when this happens, it's just really, really fun to see because it just makes you think back to George Lucas, with American Graffiti, and then he moved on to, what's it called? Oh, yeah, Star Wars. And anyway, it's always fun to see this stuff happen. I really have no feelings, about the fact that Mega Man's going to be adapted into a movie. A lot of people are like, what? For me, I don't have as much of a connection to it. I know that it has a fairly niche fan base, but nevertheless, it has a lot of potential for a fun movie there from solid directors. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I should probably mention this, but the Catfish trailer is one of the most mismarketed trailers I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's a really well done trailer, but when you watch the movie, it is nothing like that trailer. Now, when you step beyond the trailer, the movie itself is an interesting documentary on the the whole dating scene and being catfished and whatnot. I've been catfished myself, so I understand how it it's kind of an issue in the kind of online dating world and whatnot. And it's a fascinating documentary, but that trailer, man, god damn it, Joel. I remember when I saw the trailer, I was so hyped. I was like, when they had a quote in there that said it said something about like Hitchcockian, I was like, oh my god, like the trailer looks like that. It could be like a Hitchcockian found footage film. I'm totally in. It's nothing like that. And when the reveal is kind of revealed at the end, it's so anticlimactic. I was like, is there anything more? And then when the movie ends, you're like, wow, that was very misdirected. But anyways, these two guys, they started with Catfish, of course, and one of the directors out of the bunch, Ariel Schulman, he's the brother of the subject in Catfish, Neve. And so, it was just really fun to kind of see them do this low-budget thing and then also go to another low-budget thing such as, the Paranormal Activity movies, which I don't even think they did that bad of a job on their version or on their Paranormal Activities. They're fine. But yeah, just seeing them kind of advance even further and do like a bigger movie, it seems to be the kind of trend that we are seeing in Hollywood when we look at like a Ryan Coogler, for instance. When you do Fruitvale Station, it looked like it cost like $5. Then you move on to Creed, which is like a medium-sized film, and now he's doing Black Panther, one of the biggest Marvel movies to come out next year. It just seems like the natural progression for directors, and I didn't really play Mega Man growing up. I know that Joel and I, we're basically 90s kids, and Mega Man, I remember it was popular when we were kids, but let's face it, folks, if you're a 90s kid and you grew up in that era, when 1996, I believe, is the year, when N64 came out, it was done. It was like, that was our childhood. That is the console that most of us in kind of like our generation kind of gravitated towards. I know a lot of people were PlayStation people and a lot of people were Sega people, but it's all N64 was my thing. But yeah, so that's why I never played Mega Man, because I was so enveloped into Mario games and whatnot. But Mega Man is cool. I've seen like the premise of it, and I've seen like gameplay footage, and it's very Metroid Prime-y, almost for like kids. And I probably just pissed a lot of people off, but whatever. That just shows you how much I don't really know about it. Yeah, it could be bad, it could be good, but we don't really know, because the stuff they've directed in the past is a documentary and a couple of low budget horror films. So it's like, oh, and then of course Nerve from Joel, but I didn't see Nerve, so I mean, we'll see, I guess. Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm glad they're getting work. Just keep doing your thing, man. All right. So, speaking of maybe getting work, maybe not, is the cast of Alien Covenant, Joel. So Alien Covenant didn't do that well. It kind of stumbled at the box office, and Joel and I are like part of the only group, like small group of people that actually really enjoy Covenant, and I actually like Prometheus and Alien Covenant as like a package so far. I want to see them continue, but the box office has kind of dropped a little bit. So Fox is kind of like reassessing what they're going to actually do with this, because Ridley Scott still needs to make, I believe, like one or two more movies before they can, or I think it's like one more movie to connect to Alien, and then he also wants to like do something in the future and like kind of go beyond, Alien Resurrection and whatnot. So he's got like this Alien universe planned out, but Alien Covenant didn't make that much money. I think it only made like 250, 260 mil worldwide, and Prometheus made like 400 something. So when you see that much of a dip, I think people are getting, I wouldn't say tired of the Alien franchise, but more of like just kind of exhausted and whatnot. Because as of right now, if you include the AVP films, was it like 8 films in this whole franchise? So it's like, that's a lot. I mean, we're getting into like Jason and Freddy territory, so I get it. I know Joel and I enjoyed it, but if the masses do not enjoy it, it's going to be really hard for them to continue to go forward, even though I want them to finish this up, finish whatever hell story they wanted to do. So it's very sad that they have to, kind of think about what they want to do in terms of going forward. But, it's business. I get it. It's sad, but I get it. Joel, I mean, after Alien Covenant, like, were you, like, amped to see the next one, or were you like, I could actually wait like a few more years?
I mean, if I have to wait, I have to wait. I like the movie quite a bit. I think that it was very effective as a sequel to Prometheus, maybe slightly less so as an Alien, installment. I felt like they struggled to connect, but I liked it as a Prometheus sequel, and I think that it, they wanted to span this out and touch the rest of the Alien franchise, connect them together more directly. That could work, but I wish that they would get a handle on this in terms of I just wish that box office didn't run everything. That's what I wish, because this is
Joel. I hate to break it to you, but Hollywood's a business.
I know.
I know it's weird, right? Like we go and see these movies and we're like, oh, these are like nice pieces of art. They're really great, highbrow entertainment. And it's like, no, in reality, it's a business. So what works is what they're going to go with, and what doesn't work, they're going to shoot it like in the backyard and not ever talk about it again.
Yeah, it's a horse that they got to kill with a shotgun or whatever. There are a bunch of horse doctors in Hollywood. There we go.
This is true.
No, but anyway, I just wish that they would get a handle on this and just move forward with it. Honestly, Ridley Scott's a director with vision, and I think that, especially if he has a vision for an entire universe, it's probably really cool, or an entire further universe, I should say. And returning to one of the movies that made him, the movie that made him such a big name, and combined with Blade Runner. So I just wish that they would move forward with it, do another couple movies, and then see what happens instead of judging it on this one. See what happens with the other ones. If, for instance, like, what if this happens? What if it becomes a bigger name or a bigger thing on Blu-ray, and then they've already made the decision, we're just going to cancel everything. Well, then this always happens, of course, but you always have to think, what do they think when that happens?
Well, to be honest with you, they're probably going to do that. Like, they're probably going to see and kind of assess what the numbers are for the Blu-ray sales, the streaming, everything. Now, if it actually, like, kind of bumps up a little bit more than they thought, then they will consider a next one. But these sci-fi films, whether you're talking Star Wars, you're talking Alien, you're talking anything set in, even Passengers. Passengers was a very bland movie, but guess what? All these movies in this genre are fucking expensive, and that's why it's such a risk to do these movies. But when you open up with Prometheus and you have 400 plus million worldwide, that's a great number considering the fact that thing costs like around 100-ish, and when you're looking at marketing and doubling that, you're only looking at maybe getting over the 200 mark to break even, and it made 400, so it surpassed that. When you look at Alien Covenant, it cost a little bit more, but it made extremely less than its predecessor, so that's where it's kind of tricky as an executive go, do I really want to invest all this money to do this again, even though I'm sure, like, they want Ridley Scott to finish it, because Ridley Scott's been with 20th Century Fox for a very, very long time. They're very loyal to him. I just don't know, as a business sense, if they really want to sink that much money into it, unless we can find like some dark horse investor that's like, you know what, I'm okay if I don't lose that much. Like, go ahead and make it. So hopefully there's like some alien fanboy out there that's fucking rich as balls and will hand Ridley Scott all this money and like, finish it up, fam.
Well, what they need to do is they need to hand it over to Blumhouse. That sort of segues into our next bit of news. But before I get to that bit of news, I just want to make this point that Blumhouse has proven that they can take on expensive projects and make them for about like a fifth of the price than they might have been. I can't imagine Blumhouse maybe not spending quite a bit of money on something where the actor needs to have motion capture or whatever, but nevertheless they could probably still make that for much cheaper than it costs Hollywood to make it, or a big Hollywood studio like Paramount or Sony, who are going to be defunct in like 20 years. And we gotta find a way. Hollywood's got to find a way to, they've got a bunch of money, but they don't need to spend all of that money making a single movie.
Correct.
And because, as we know, people are getting tired. Well, these are not connected points, but we have seen from box office this year that people are getting tired of franchises they don't care about. And the installments of those franchises cost a whole lot of money, and then you got to double it for the theaters. So it's a commentary on the state of things right now, that people want, movies that are a little riskier, that are not, the comfortable thing that they know. And with Alien, I think that people have liked it particularly because it doesn't saturate the market. It was 5 years since the last Alien movie. Before that, it was 5 years since the last Alien-related movie with, Alien versus Predator. So I think that people like this series. I think that perhaps they thought of it as a Prometheus sequel or an Alien sequel or something. I don't know why it failed at the box office. It might have failed because it cost, maybe more than it should have to make. because I think that its numbers were impressive in general as numbers, but not relative to its budget, which is everything in
Correct.
math.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and people are actually just talking about this. I feel like we need to do like a special podcast on stupidity of box office coverage right now, because The Big Sick made the top 5 last week. This is me going on a tangent real fast.
Joel, we don't allow that because this show is professional, and we don't like to steer away. Like, the audience doesn't give a shit about what you're about. They're rolling their eyes right now because they're like, whatever Joel has to say, I'm gonna go take a pee break. I'm gonna go beat one off in the closet or wherever. Like, they just don't care right now, Joel. But go ahead, say what you need to say.
So it's funny because I see a lot of people. The Big Sick made the top 5. This is a small movie that barely cost anything to make.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but because Lionsgate released their goal number, and then the movie fell below it, it's being considered a box office failure.
No, it's not. That movie is not flopping at all.
It is not a box office failure at all.
No way. It's actually succeeding more than I thought it would.
Yeah, it was like it rose 112% or whatever, and it made the top 5. And this is an original property from a small studio made for barely any money, and it's a box office failure. You're kidding me. And so anyway, back to Blumhouse. I feel like Blumhouse would be able to take something on, especially considering our next bit of news, which is they're taking on a pre-existing IP. I feel like they would be able to take that on, and while it would still be quote unquote expensive, it would probably cost less for Blumhouse to do it because they always seem to get those funds and make it for cheap. It's Jason Blum's mastery at that. On that topic, they're taking on Spawn. This is very interesting because they're going to be making it R-rated, which the 1997 movie should have been, and it's going to be a low budget. It's going to be a special effects movie, but it's going to be low budget, and that proves my point. They're going to be controlling their budget. It's sort of like District 9. District 9 cost $20 million, but it looks like it cost $120 million. And so they're going to be spending very, low funds for this, and then probably making a great product. Now, I'm actually one of 3 people, including Roger Ebert, who really like the 90s movie. I know that it's super unpopular. It's considered like almost a mean, vile movie. I liked it for all of that. I thought that it was a mean, vile movie that I loved. It's terrific, and I have seen it recently. I saw it, I think, about 4 years ago on DVD. I rented it, and I'm a big fan. But I feel like they could improve on it with new technology and new voices. I do hope though that they get John Leguizamo back. Because his performance in the original movie was something else. I think that they need to bring him back. But anyway, they are taking on Spawn. I'm very interested to see how this turns out. Who takes the project, as a director? They've dealt with Pax with the Devil movies in the past, and I hope that they don't get pretty much anybody involved with Incarnate from last winter. That was the horrible Aaron Eckhart movie, and that was them. It failed at the box office because they hid it from critics and everybody. But nevertheless, making something like this cheap is very interesting, and I'm excited to see that happen.
Yeah, what's really great about Blumhouse is that the guy just knows how to work the business. When your movie costs like $5 million and you end up making like $200 million worldwide, which is what he's done essentially for 2 films this year, and we're not even done with the end of the year, that's pretty fucking impressive. Now, I have a theory, because Joel's right. This is going to be a CGI-heavy movie. If you look at Jason Blum's filmography, his films aren't really CGI-heavy. Now, they might have a couple sequences here and there, but they're not heavy with that. They're very grounded, just characters. They try to use practical effects or just facial acting to convey what's happening rather than kind of blow it up with like shitty CGI. I have a theory that because Split made over 200 million worldwide and Get Out making almost damn near the same, when both of their budgets combined I think was like $20 million, I think since he got a surplus of cash this year, I think he actually wants to dip into a CGI heavy movie, which makes total sense. If Blumhouse can knock this out of the park, Blumhouse is officially in the comic book game. Now, you can look at Split and Unbreakable as kind of like his version of comic book lore, if you will, that he's tackling, but he's actually tackling IP now, which is exciting because this is a guy that does, like I said, smaller stuff, and now that he's kind of doing this IP that's been around for a very long time, I mean, if he knocks it out of the park, he's going to be a legend. You can like Jason Blum all you want, or you might think most of his movies are terrible. Listen, I'm not saying that he's perfect. Some of the movies that he puts his name on are not that good. I can be fully aware of that. But for the most part, I actually like his horror films. He's very smart business-wise. He's very good at picking, for the most part, the right type of horror films to release. And he's good at releasing the PG-13 ones and the R-rated ones. So having this one come out being that hard R of a character that's super fucking dark, by the way. If you don't know like the background of Spawn, it's a Marine that basically like goes to hell because he gets killed and he kills he accidentally killed like a bunch of innocent people. He makes a deal with the devil and his soul is like put back on Earth so he can kind of be with his wife again, and then he realizes his wife is married to his best friend. It's some dark shit. And so the 1997 one, whether Joel likes it or not, it was more kind of campy. It didn't really tap into like that dark demonic shit that we want to see in this type of franchise. But listen, and Jason Blum, if you're listening, please clarify it for me. But I seriously think because he has that surplus from Get Out and Split this year, I think he was like, you know what? I want to kind of tackle a little bit more expensive property and see if I can get myself into this game. So what a smart fucking dude! I'm telling you that right now. But Blumhouse, keep doing your thing, man, because I will continue to go watch the majority of your shit. But if you pump out stuff like the first Ouija, that's when I get a little scared. But for the most part, I'm very open to whatever he does.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that it's a very interesting project to take on at this point in the game. So what's the next bit of news, Chase?
Speaking of demonic shit, Channing Tatum is reportedly going to star as Van Helsing, going to be in this kind of Universal monster universe. I'm going to keep this short and simple because this was very easy to decide for me. I have to put a caveat on this, Joel. This has nothing to do with the talents of Channing Tatum or him being cast as Van Helsing, because I actually think it could work. And to be honest with you, I'll guarantee you that Universal saw footage of Kingsman, the Golden Circle, and realized how badass he is with a gun, and was like, you know what? He can fit this role. He's got the charm. He's got the wit. He's got the badassery. He can do this. However, The Mummy was so horrid that right now, currently in this state, Joel, I do not give a shit about anything that they do to expand this universe. I don't give a shit about any film they got in the pipeline. So any casting news, I don't care at this point, because The Mummy was atrocious, because they didn't concentrate on one movie. They concentrated on making a franchise, and that is what's pissing me off about Hollywood nowadays, because they just think that everything's gonna be a franchise. We're gonna have this connected. No, Marvel did it. They struck gold and they went with it, and some of them will continue to do it, like DC, and it'll work for them. But you can't just be like, I'm just gonna do this franchise in shared universe. Make a good fucking movie first. So the fact that The Mummy just has tainted my memory, I don't give a shit about this story. But as a pure pick for Van Helsing, I can see it, because when I watch the we'll discuss it next week, but the new Kingsman trailer, Channing Tatum looks cool. So I mean, it's like I get it. I get why you would get him. He's got the appeal. He could wield weapons correctly. He's got the presence. So I get it. I just don't give two flying fuck shits about this. So Joel, I mean, do you feel the same? Because The Mummy was fucking terrible.
Yeah, I'm sort of the two same minds. I like Channing Tatum, especially as an action hero. I thought he was one of the things that worked about the first G.I. Joe movie, for instance. But this whole universe doesn't seem very promising to me. So I can't really get super excited about that, and that's the major selling point of this, that he's going to be playing Van Helsing in this universe that I don't care about. So I'm sort of the same two minds as you. It's conflicting because I like him, but can we just get him better work? That would be great.
Well, I mean, the Kingsman trailer pretty much reassured me that, like, with movies like this, if he continues to do stuff like that, he'll be back on track.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely works as an action hero. I just wish that they were in more promising movies.
Correct.
Than Van Helsing, and so it's not hugely promising. Speaking of not hugely promising.
Uh-oh.
So I actually haven't seen very many of these movies. I saw the original, which is the 1956 movie, I think, and I saw that horrible, directionless 2007 movie that had a bunch of problems that they just couldn't work out. There's going to be another Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake over at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has been in the news a lot, especially as of yesterday. But this was an interesting thing because I know that the 1978 film with Donald Sutherland is pretty much considered the best of them. I haven't seen it. That's one of my horrible blind spots where I can't believe I haven't seen it. But I'm waiting for somebody to rent the copy that is at my work so that it's then used, so that then I can rent it for free, or I can buy it for a cheaper price than it is right now, which is $26.99. I just can't do that. But nevertheless, I've heard that it's super popular, and I think the 90s one was fairly well liked. But this is going to be the fourth one, and so it'll be interesting to see who they get as director. I feel like this property would be a lot more popular now. It was sort of material that was considered ahead of its time in some cases, and it's been it's been adapted sort of as various movies. I think that the last one was sort of a suspense thriller. The one in the 90s was a gross-out thriller. The 70s one was pretty straight horror, as far as I know. And then, of course, the 50s one was what all sci-fi movies in the 50s were. But and that one was really good. But this will be interesting to see how a modern-day Warner Brothers that is kind of struggling to, profit from a lot of IPs is going to take on another one and do it justice. It'll be interesting to see, for sure. We obviously got to, find out who's directing it and all of that. But what do you think about this, Chase? What's your history with this title?
Gotta be honest with you, I've never seen the original, the OG with Mr. Sutherland, but I've seen clips and whatnot, and it looks great. I've always liked that kind of old school sci-fi type of horror that it's a lot creepier when you don't see the creature or whatever's attacking you rather than seeing it, and so I've really enjoyed those type of films. The Daniel Craig one with Nicole Kidman, I saw it in theaters because I was working at the theater at the time. It was you're right, it was very directionless. It was very joyless. It was just kind of stale. It was like a mental hospital wall. It's just there was nothing to it of substance that I really enjoyed. So to be honest with you, I don't really care about this, but if they can kind of go back to that old school 50s mentality, it could work. And they tried to do that with the 2007 version. They tried to make it old school. It just, like I said, I just thought it was very lifeless, and it kind of makes sense for what those creatures actually do to you. They make you like a lifeless drone, but I don't know, man. I would have to see who's being attached first. Can you? I'm gonna pitch this, but what if like, because James Wan's very good at the horror movies that he does, and he kind of brings that kind of old school flavor, whether he's using really unique techniques with his editing or cinematography. Do you think someone like that could actually work for this type of story?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I really do. I think that would work. It'll be interesting to see who they hire for sure, but I think that would be a name to consider. All right, I'm gonna have you take the next two bits of news right in a row because I'm gonna end off the news bit with the controversy.
Oh shit! Well, I'm not prepared for that. I can't do two stories in a row, man. That's just too much. I might have a heart attack. All right. So the first story. Speaking of people that are hired to do movies, we have Noah Hawley, who is more well known for writing Fargo and also Legion, Bones. This guy's got a really great kind of. I know it's not called filmography, Joel. What's it called? Like writography? What do writers have? They have a list of stuff. All right, so
But it's filmography, but
yeah. So I mean, he's done a lot of stuff, especially like nowadays with like the season 3 of Fargo and especially Legion, which I saw like the first 6 episodes. I still need to finish it, but it's a really well done film, kind of like in the X-Men type of realm a little bit. It's really well written. Characters are really rich and developed. So this guy, speaking of rich and developed characters, one of the most iconic villains in Marvel history. Not just, Disney Marvel or 20th Century Fox Marvel or comic books. It's like, no, he's one of like the top 5 if you ask anyone. One of my friends is a huge Doctor Doom fan. And Doctor Doom has been very, let's just say, mishandled a little bit in the movies with featuring him. And so Noah Hawley is being tapped to... is he directing it as well, Joel, or is he just writing it?
I believe he's doing both.
He's doing both. So Noah Hawley is being tapped to write and direct a Doctor Doom standalone movie. Yeah, I'm okay with that. You know what's really cool is like when I heard about this, I was like, this guy really hasn't directed a feature film before. Yeah, he's directed a couple episodes of Fargo and 1 episode of Legion. He directed the pilot to Legion, but he's really never directed a feature film before. However, when you have the guy that has written Legion, this totally makes sense. Legion actually almost has like a Doctor Doom type of flavor to it, where it's kind of got that kind of surreal, almost like horror mentality. So I'm actually okay with this. Like I am. Listen, if this goes through, this could be the best Fantastic Four movie that we've had so far. When you have the talent of what he is, and you also have the great character that is Doctor Doom, that is beloved by many people. If this is delivered correctly, I'm not even joking. Out of the 4 attempts that they've had, this could be the best Fantastic Four movie without the Fantastic Four. So I have nothing more to say. I think this is actually pretty genius, but they have to go forward with it. This can't just be like, some project they want to do in the pipeline. No, if they are serious about this, they need to pull the trigger and go for it. Because like I said, if this is delivered properly, then we could see a Fantastic Four kind of resurgence a little bit, because then people will kind of get jazzed for this universe if they like the Doctor Doom movies. So, great pick. I think it makes total sense, especially since he was involved with Legion. So, Joel, have you seen Legion or Fargo, and like, what do you know of Noah Hawley's work, and do you think this is the right pick?
I haven't seen any of it. Here's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the fact that they're probably... I mean, I really hope that they don't, but like, I guess they're gonna reboot the series with this again for like the 748th time. But it just makes me think of how much I despised the 2015 Fantastic Four movie. It's the worst superhero movie ever made, in my opinion.
It's a pretty big pile of poop.
It is, and I feel like. I just feel like I'm no longer interested in their attempts to bring it back. They've made no good movies from this. And while I mean, I'm usually an optimist, and I'm certainly going to see this if it comes out. I just am not interested. I'm just not. And again, I don't know Noah Hawley's work, so I know that he's popular, but I don't know his work firsthand, so I can't comment on that. I can only comment on what I know, which is that we haven't seen a good Fantastic Four movie. They haven't gotten a handle on this, and I feel like a standalone movie about the villain of the movies is kind of a weird direction to go in, and I don't know. I don't know, man. It'll be weird.
Well, you know what, Joel? Maybe with like people like you and like other people that have never seen Noah Hawley's work, maybe this movie will like inspire you to go watch Fargo or Legion.
Maybe. I mean, I
Maybe.
guess I probably should just watch them. Probably shouldn't wait for this, but nevertheless, I totally get that. I think that it's certainly going to put his name on in a spotlight that maybe it isn't in yet as a creator of stuff that hasn't done a lot of directing. That certainly is possible, but I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, and speaking of interesting, Joel, I don't know if you know this, but of course Joel knows this because he did the goddamn notes. But Joel, I don't know if you know this, but Sony wants to do their Venom movie and Black Cat and Silver and all that stuff. Like they want to do that in a separate universe, kind of do their own thing, get away from the Disney brand, and have Spider-Man be in both. But they want to do their own thing with their other villains and whatnot. And so the thing with this one is that it's going to be so wildly different. It's going to be like a fucking Andy Warhol painting. So, Venom, they want to make it and paint it as a horror film. And for, Silver and Black Cat, it's going to be more like a buddy film. So, this is... I want to know how far this is going to last. Because the Spider-Man that we see now is going to be in this universe for quite some time. And that's going to be kind of Sony's tie to the MCU, and they're gonna get a lot of money from this. It's gonna keep them afloat, so they can fund all their other projects, and of course the other films and whatnot. And so, with it being so wildly different, I mean, I don't know honestly how it's gonna reciprocate towards people, because Venom's gonna be a hard R. This buddy film is gonna probably be more of a family-friendly, wholesome PG-13. So I just don't know how it's going to really mesh. Like, it's basically just like seeing a bunch of paint splats on a wall and just be like, yeah, I guess that can make sense. When deep in your mind, it's like, that's a little messy. So I don't know how it's going to actually turn out. Venom's going to be their first one. Now, if they hit Venom out of the park and it feels like its own separate thing without, being affiliated with Spider-Man and it actually stands on its own 2 feet, I'd be okay with it. I gotta see what they're gonna do first before I can make any type of decision. But the fact that they're gonna be so wildly different than what Spider-Man is involved in, which is a pretty consistent tone throughout most Marvel films, I don't know how people are gonna react to it. I really don't. Now, the 1% of people in this world, that includes Joel, myself, and pretty much every one of you beautiful people out there listening, we see movies all the time. We are very well versed into this movie world. We know the industry. We know what's going on out there. Most people do not. They just go see movies and go, oh, another Spider-Man movie. They don't even know that's in the MCU. They really don't. So I don't know if people even care, to be honest with you, the fact that Venom might be wildly different than the buddy film. So to people, I don't think it will care. For me, I honestly don't care as well. I kind of want to see what they're doing with it first, and Venom is the first one up. Now, if Venom sucks ass, they need to stop, because they've had a lot of chances, trying to set up Sinister Six, doing other Spider-Mans in the past. Spider-Man Homecoming worked not because Sony was involved, it's because Kevin Feige was one of the producers, and he probably had to put his foot down a little bit on some things and be like, don't think we should do that. Here's my suggestion. Even though it's your character, here's my suggestion. So the fact that they're doing these solo without Kevin Feige's help, I don't know if Kevin Feige will be involved with it. But the fact that they're doing this by themselves, and it's going to be different tones all over the place, it just seems kind of messy at first. But, if that first Venom movie kind of knocks it out of the park, I'll be back on track. So I got to see that first before I make any type of assessment. But a horror film with Venom and Carnage, yes, I'm totally on board for it still. Like, that doesn't bother me because that's genius. So, we'll see how it pans out. So, Joel, like, does this concern you? Does this just kind of reek of desperation? And, like, is it almost like, Sony is just like, they've started this fire, they're trying to put it out, but they just keep adding more fire to it? Like are they ever going to, like, put this fire out and, like, get their studio back on track?
Right. For me, it's like every time some studio tries the cinematic universe, it almost inherently reeks of desperation because they are desperate for something to work about it. Sometimes it's not bad desperation. But here it's interesting because I feel like, we were talking right before this, that the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it is, while there are slight derivations and divergences between the movies, they generally feel the same, like they feel like part of one work. So for Venom to be a horror movie, for Silver and Black to be sort of a buddy movie that's completely different, possibly a comedy, we don't know. I think that's kind of a smart. Well, it's smart in the way that it's sort of ballsy. It's ballsy to do that because what you have is a studio trying to kind of claw their way back from financial meltdowns galore by just kind of going all in with this decision, and I like that. I like the balls of that decision. So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, you're right. We have to see how Venom is. We have to see how Venom is, and we have to see how it does, because if people don't really care for that treatment of it, then they're not going to see it. So obviously, we got to wait and see. But as of right now, I think it's an interesting idea for sure. So I'm certainly open to it.
And now I have a question to ask you though. Are you open about this new controversial HBO series?
I am.
Oh, well, please explain to the folks out there.
All right. So this has been a very interesting story to watch unfold in the last few days. So it came about, when was it? I guess on Wednesday or something, that the showrunners of Game of Thrones, who are David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, are going to be, they're wrapping up that show, which I've only watched 3 episodes of. I can't comment on it beyond that. Nevertheless, they're wrapping up that show. This season's going to be the last one, and they are moving on pretty quickly to a show called Confederate. And this is interesting because what the show is going to be about is it's going to kind of be like The Man in the High Castle, where The Man in the High Castle is an Amazon original about an alternate reality in which the Axis forces won World War II, meaning that everything has been kind of infiltrated with German influences. So, like, there's half the U.S. that's its own, not colony, its own, I guess colony is the right word. And then there's, the other half is run by Germans. And it's a really interesting show because it sort of tackles the horrors of what that world is in that universe. And so now we're getting Confederate, which will be an alternate reality in which the South won the Civil War and the Confederacy of the United States replaced the Republic. So, of course, slavery is going to be still legal to some degree that we don't know yet. We don't know if it's going to be the kind of indentured servitude that we know from, iconography from that period. We just know that it's going to be slavery and that it's legal. And nevertheless, this is, from what I'm reading, it's going to be sort of a psychological drama in some cases, which is, again, very much like The Man in the High Castle. And of course, because of the nature of the show and the wording of the press release, an enormous controversy came about. A bunch of backlash stating, from people who basically are kind of claiming indirectly that they already know, what this show is going to be about. It's going to be this wishful fantasy about, headed off by two white men, to be about how white men are still winning. And that's a very controversial thing right now because of the state of things in our country. And so, anyway, but all of it is premature because we don't know anything about this. This is a show that is still in the beginning stages. This is a show that doesn't have any episodes written, as far as I know, yet. We don't know anything about it. The press release is very carefully worded, as any press release about any show is going to be, that's still under contracts galore about, the details. So they can't tell us everything about the show yet. And it's been really frustrating to see this happen. They've hidden the fact, or essentially hidden the fact, that two of the showrunners are black. Nichelle Spellman and Malcolm Spellman. Nichelle Spellman is one of the exec producers of The Good Wife, which is a show that just recently ended a couple years ago, with Juliana Margulies, a bunch of other people. Great show until the last episode. And then Malcolm Spellman is one of the showrunners of Empire, which is not something I've watched yet. I certainly have interest in it. I just don't have time. Which is the music drama show. So, Malcolm Spellman and Nichelle Spellman have sort of talked about this meeting in which they were just completely sold by the idea. They were excited, and it was brought to them by these guys who are white, yes, but they're also storytellers. And I feel like we're in some twilight zone where we're now allowed to judge things that are not out, not made. Nothing is actually solidly there yet. And it also sounds like an interesting idea that could confront some really, really tough subjects. That's the point of art. That is the point of art, is to confront this stuff. And if they're doing it through a serious drama, then it just wait. Just wait to see details of the show. And also, I want to tell everybody that the worst form of journalism is to just guess right now that because Game of Thrones is apparently not very popular for how it treats people of color in the show, just don't assume that that's going to be the case here, because that's terrible journalism. You're confusing the inventory for the facts, for the analysis. You're just doing a terrible, terrible job. And I've seen a bunch of articles, embrace that line of logic that because Game of Thrones treats this stuff without much grace, obviously Confederate's going to, and it's just so annoying. Just get over this impulse, because it's completely unrealistic and kind of dumb. So anyway, my thoughts are I'm very, very interested in this. I think that it could be something that we need in terms of the fact that it'll probably, consider a lot of these themes with horror, and I think that it could be very real, very important, very valuable right now to start conversations. And you start conversations, and then that's when, later down the line, compassion comes in. Compassionate viewing of this situation is very important, and I feel like that's what we're headed for. If you just wait to see the show, watch the thing. You literally cannot judge it until you watch it. It's just not how it works. So, rant over.
That was a very kind of tame rant there, Joel. I'm a little disappointed, but Joel said it was the last season. They still have one more. Season 8 was 6 episodes, so we won't even see Confederate for a very long time anyways. But they are banking on Confederate as like their next like big transition from Game of Thrones, showrunners to this one. I love this idea. I love those type of like alternate scenario type of shows where like, what if this happened instead of the actual outcome? And, we are living in this kind of divisive time nowadays. Joel and I, we're not going to get political on this show. This is a movie podcast, but Joel and I have very strong feelings towards the administration at hand. And, in this kind of day and age, this show is very appropriate because Joel's right. It's going to show kind of the horrors of humanity and like the disgusting nature of our species and, just everything about that. And it's going to be reflective. Art is always about reflective, mirroring of what society actually is and, and what it could be if we don't, take the right precautions. And I love those. I love cautionary tales. I love alternate kind of scenario shows, what if this happens instead of this. I love that. It's really, it could, provide for great drama and great horror and just, fantasy and just like have all these elements kind of work together and be something pretty powerful to really kind of, touch upon these, real life issues and whatnot. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. I love it. And, it's shows like this that always make me super excited that I purchased an HBO Now account and now I can watch this shit and I don't have to borrow accounts from people like a fucking chump. So, just like Joel, I've only seen 4 episodes of Game of Thrones, but this is definitely a show I will want to watch for sure. So I fucking love it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, so that is the end of our news broadcast. Now we're getting on to the trailers, and guys, again, none of these trailers are from Comic-Con. None of them. Yet we have 10 trailers to talk to you about because this was a packed to the gills week. Chase, you want to take the first one?
Abso-fucking-lutely. All right, so there's a couple of them I'm going to jizz all over, and it will make Joel roll his eyes, but this is not one of them. All right, so Netflix has dropped a trailer. They actually dropped several trailers, 2 of which I really enjoyed. This one I did not. It's Bright, and it's the Will Smith, Joel Edgerton powerhouse, written by Max Landis and directed by good old David Ayer, who brought us Suicide Squad, Training Day, End of Watch. His thing. Well, not Training Day. He wrote Training Day, but he was still involved with it. Anyways, Bright shows Will Smith as a cop. Joel Edgerton is his partner. But oh wait, Joel, hilarity ensues. Joel Edgerton is actually a fucking orc. I know, it's weird, right? So we have all these mythical creatures set in LA, and we're basically playing with race and discrimination and hard-hitting issues with a world that's set with half human and half mystical creatures from whatever land, orcs, elves, whatever you want to call it. So it's basically like Training Day, except it's more kind of like a fantasy sci-fi bend. I gotta be honest, I didn't really care for it. Yes, I appreciate Will Smith's kind of buzz cut and his kind of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air mustache. It's a great kind of nostalgic thing, but I didn't really get into the story that much. I didn't really think the meshing of the two kind of genres went well together. Didn't really care for Joel Edgerton's makeup. It looked very fake, and I don't know, it could be good, but this trailer representation didn't really win me over. But I applaud at least the originality and the ambition of the movie, because I'm not going to just completely shit on Max Landis like most people do. Whenever he has something good, I'll acknowledge it. Yes, is this something kind of original and, like I said, ambitious? Sure. It just didn't really work for me. And as far as, like, all the Netflix original movies coming out and TV shows, this is definitely at the bottom of the list. I don't really have that much urgency to want to see this right away as soon as it drops. I might watch it 6 months later after it drops on Netflix, but I'm not going to watch it opening night. So, I don't know, Joel, did this one hit you differently?
No, this looks insane.
You're like, nah, fam, I pretty much agree.
Here's the thing. Like, this is going to be a parable about race relations from the guy who Max Landis is a guy who wrote a really good screenplay for Chronicle, and then a solid dish one for American Ultra, I thought, and hasn't made anything else that I like yet. Yeah, no, this looks bad to me, and I don't know, man. The fairy lives don't matter thing. It's just I don't like.
It almost kind of rubs you the wrong way a little bit. You're like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very weird, and I feel like we're gonna get this parable from a guy who I don't think has a real grasp on the idea of parables. It's going to be really obvious, I think, like super duper obvious in ways that are annoying, and it's just super just, and it doesn't even look good. Like look wise, the visual effects look bad. The makeup looks fake. The movie looks really dark in that way that Suicide Squad was. The dark cinematography that I didn't like. I'm always excited to see Will Smith and stuff, I guess, but just whatever, I guess. Yeah, I don't have any feelings about this. I feel like it's probably not going to be very good. It comes out it's like December 22nd on Netflix.
So it's a great Christmas viewing.
Yeah.
Joel, you're telling me, like, you seem like you hate this trailer. Are you saying that fairy lives don't matter? Is that what you're telling me right now? Are you like blatantly telling the whole world that you don't give a fuck about fairies? Because that's really rude, Joel.
I am bigoted against fairies.
Wow, wow! You heard it here, folks. You can go write this in an article and send it off to someone, because Joel just does not like fairies. He doesn't like orcs or elves. Like this guy's fucking insane. So Joel, let's move on to the next one, because obviously you're losing your goddamn mind.
All right, so our next one. Oh boy! All right, so The Disaster Artist. This one is from director James Franco. It has one of the most insane casts of the year, in terms of just like James Franco and also Sharon Stone, in that kind of a way. And this one is about the making of The Room, which is the 2003 film directed by Tommy Wiseau and starring him. That was a romantic drama, I guess. I haven't seen it yet. I know that Chase has offered to take me out to Dallas or whatever to see it. He has done that privately. However, I will be able to very soon. I will have the DVD in my hands, because a friend of mine owns that and the Blu-ray, and he's going to be sending me it, the DVD. So I'll be seeing that very soon, sometime in early August, and I can't wait because this scene, like we've all seen the scene where Tommy Wiseau's character comes out. He's got a water bottle in his hands, and it's the "Oh hi Marcy." Throws the water bottle down very subtly, onto the ground, very subtly. Like there's so much subtlety there, and is just like, I did not hit her. I didn't, that scene. And this trailer, this teaser really is perfect. It is perfect because what it does is it understands that what we want to see teased about this movie is some form of a recreation of one of the funniest scenes from it. I have seen the YouTube video of the 8 funniest scenes. I think it's like 12 minutes long. I've basically seen the gist of the movie. I know what happens at the end. I just haven't seen the whole movie. So, and this is one of those things where I don't really care, that I've seen, basically the essence of the movie. I'll watch the whole thing happily later on. With movies like this, it's not about spoiling the experience, because it just is obviously one of those things that can't be spoiled. And so I cannot wait to see through James Franco's eyes a sort of a drama comedy hybrid that tackles the making of this movie. I just can't wait for that. It's just so exciting to me. And this was the perfect teaser to do that. It understands that what we want to see is a recreation of an iconic scene. A24 knew that. They told their PR guys, just do this scene, basically. This is going to be the teaser. And they did it. And, somebody then timed it on YouTube. They timed it with Tommy Wiseau's delivery, and James Franco lines up perfectly. It's perfectly lined up. So again, it's going to be one of those tricky performances where it's probably going to be a really terrific one, where half of it is as a terrible performance, which is going to be interesting to see, because I feel like this is going to be a big Oscar player. It comes out in December. It comes from A24, who, news alert, won Best Picture last year. And I feel like this is going to be something that a lot of people take seriously. And, this kind of thing Hollywood loves. They love when filmmakers cover other filmmakers. And this one, it's done with the express permission and involvement of Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero, who did he co-write or he produced or something the original movie. So I can't wait. It's the perfect kind of teaser, and I enjoy it.
It's really funny. It has like an Ed Wood type of vibe, and it has like this kind of fun, lighthearted kind of take on it. And this teaser is perfect because it captures the tone and the spirit of the film, of documenting another film that is considered to be one of the worst of all time. So I love the charm about it. I love the commitment to everyone, and the fact that James Franco is really kind of going there and making it the best Tommy Wiseau performance possible. Like Joel said, it's going to be tricky because he's probably going to give one of the best performances of his career. I firmly believe that, but it's going to be because he's portraying an actor who gives a terrible performance. So it's going to be really fun to kind of see what the Academy and whatnot think about that. So, yeah.
Because it's interesting because when we watch a movie with an actor in it, we are watching the actor perform the character, and we kind of forget everything else about it. But what we have to remember is that Tommy Wiseau was directing the movie, basically. Yeah, well, sort of. This scene sort of suggests that maybe he was not quite as directing it as kind of just he was the guy who made who wrote the script. But nevertheless, we watch the actor play the role, and we don't think about the fact that going, constantly in their head is, I got to control everything about this. And so we get that here. So we'll be able to, through James Franco's performance, if he's great, get that feeling like the guy's got, cogs working in his brain. He's got to keep an eye on everything, which might be why he can't remember the line of the dialogue. I mean, he's thinking about everything else about it. And so that's going to be a key part of the performance, I think, is capturing, even when he's performing as an actor, his job as director. And that's going to be very interesting, especially for an actor who is directing. So, I mean, it's a bit of a meta kind of thing there, where you have a movie that was directed by its main actor being made into a movie that's being directed by its main actor. So it's a great dynamic, and it's a great teaser. So I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's also based on a book that's based on the making of that movie. So we don't actually know what's in that book. Because James Franco, I'm assuming he did his research when he wanted to take on this project. He probably read the book and probably found out some interesting stuff about the making of this film, and really wanted to kind of show the world kind of the ins and outs of making one of the worst movies of all time. And what's really funny is, like, Tommy Wiseau, like, back in the day, now he kind of embraces it, but back in the day, I will bet you $100 he didn't want to make like a bad movie. He probably thought he was making a great movie, and so now it's become like this cult hit of epic proportions because of how terrible it is.
Now what we need is a movie about the making of Troll 2, because that was a similar situation where the director was very sincerely making a movie that they thought was serious, and then was, horrified to discover that people laughed at it. And that was absolutely the same situation early on in the aftermath of the movie's, showing. And then now he has embraced it to where now Tommy Wiseau was in there was that movie Samurai Cop from the early. I've seen it. I have the pleasure of having seen it. It's a great piece of awful cinema, I should say. And there was a sequel made recently, and Tommy Wiseau was the villain. So he's kind of embraced this. First of all, the sequel was made purely with tongue in cheek on the parts of the makers. Everybody was involved, but they added Tommy Wiseau to the cast because they wanted somebody in that same area. And so he's definitely embraced that since then. Early on, I think that James Franco has been involved in this project for a long time. And, Tommy Wiseau rubbed shoulders with famous people during the point when he was making this movie and in the aftermath of it. And there was a period of time where he resented James Franco. So that's going to be interesting to see that kind of, all confer into this movie. And it just looks terrific. And anyway, but let's move on. What's the next trailer that you're gonna go all crazy over, and I'm just gonna be like, eh?
Well, you can be a curmudgeon over there, Grandpa Joel. But Jigsaw's coming out, and you guys know I'm a huge fan of the Saw franchise. So I wanted them to just kind of be done after the final chapter. It was kind of like one of those definitive endings. It's like, that's cool. Someone's carrying on the mantle. I'm okay with never seeing another one again. But if you come out with another one, just make it good. So the Jigsaw trailer dropped. I gotta tell you, I absolutely loved it. And I mean this in the best way possible, too. When I was watching it, it looks more high budget. Now, I'm not saying that, the low budget nature of the Saw films have hindered it. I actually like that kind of, gritty, low budget feel to them. But this one does have, that studio flair to it. And it has, like I said, it has more of a sheen to it, more of a bigger budget. I don't know if that will harm the movie or take away from some of the grit from the kind of, murder, mystery, suspense aspect of the original 7. I just don't know. But what gives me hope about this one, even more so, because I was already looking forward to it, is actually the directors. The Spirit brothers, who directed a very, I think, very underrated kind of vampire flick, Daybreakers with Ethan Hawke, and also another Ethan Hawke film that they did, which is a really great mindfuck, which I really enjoy watching in theaters, which was Predestination. So these guys do have some great movies under their belt, and so them tackling on this Saw installment is great. Now, yes, if you want to think about the logistics and stuff, yes, is it ridiculous that the original Jigsaw has planted all these tapes and stuff and bodies and recorders and whatnot? Yes, it's a little far-fetched, but if you could suspend your disbelief just for a little bit and really just kind of get into this dark world of this guy that thinks he's doing good, but he's kidnapping people and making them or teaching them lessons and whatnot. If you can get into that, I think you'll really enjoy it. But yeah, I really like the trailer quite a bit. The torture scenes definitely look more advanced than the previous 7. They always up their ante with them. I mean, there's even one that's they're stuck in a sand pit, and these weapons are falling from the top. Holy shit, would that be terrifying? Because you can't move. You're in a fucking sand pit, Joel. I mean, it's not physically possible. So you have to sit there and probably get impaled by an axe. But no, on top of all that, it looks like they're going to progress the story. And I'm just really curious to see what the ending is going to be and see if they're going to continue it or if they're going to make more or is this going to be a definitive end? Probably not. I mean, listen, if it makes it a lot of money, they're going to continue to make these. And like I said, I acknowledge that they're not Oscar-winning movies, but I enjoy them for what they are, and I've actually enjoyed the storyline from 1 to 7. I actually have. So if they want to make 20 of these, I'm going to say right now it's not a big deal, but at some point you will have to cut it off before it gets too excessive, and you guys are probably rolling your eyes because you're 8 films is pretty fucking excessive, Chase. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but it's great junk food to me. I just absolutely enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it. Horror is one of my favorite genres. I grew up on the slasher films. My mom introduced me to Friday the 13th and Freddy and Michael and whatnot. So I love these types of kind of iconic killer films. I mean, Chucky, fucking you put that. I'll put that to bed right now because that's one of my favorite franchises ever. I absolutely love it. So. Yeah, I like the trailer. It has a very high quality to it that's not from the other 7. Spirit Brothers have a great past to me. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Joel, Joel has thrown up many times while I've been speaking about this. I think he just threw up even just a little bit more than usual. Joel, as an outsider of the Saw franchise and someone that doesn't really like the franchise like at all, like ever, I want to know what's going through your head when you're speaking to me or you're hearing me talk about like the fact that I'm actually looking forward to this. Like, are there questions you have for me, or like, do you want me to try to rationalize it? Like, what's going through your head right now?
Well, it's not that I don't like the franchise. I like the first three. I just feel like they finished it in the third one, and then from what it sounds like, they just basically made an excuse to bring it back for the fourth, and then they, went further from there. I can't judge the movies themselves. That's just what it sounds like from me from afar. To me from afar, but this whatever. It's just blah. I wasn't a fan of Daybreakers. I like Predestination, so I'm sort of 50-50 on the directors. I guess the higher budget might help. The sheen of the first three was very gritty, so I felt like that worked in its favor. This one looks a little more, a little smoother, I guess, than gritty.
Hey, listen, I won't disagree with you, because as I was watching, I was like, this looks very, like, studio-heavy type of project, and I was like, where's that grit? Like, I want them to go back to that. Like, it has a low budget for sure, but it just looks so polished, and I was like, that could be pretty bad, because like I said, I really like kind of like that kind of off the cuff type of filmmaking that the first seven had. So I don't know, but I will agree with you on that. It's very very polishy.
Yeah, which could go either way. I did like the sandpit part though. That was pretty
cool, right? Like that's terrifying as shit. Now I will tell you, Joel, that this trailer has got to be better than the shit you're about to talk about. Please, can you agree with me on that?
So honestly, I feel basically the same way.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just both are kind of blah. So Leatherface is the next one. This is a Red Band trailer for Leatherface, which of course is a prequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is one of the most terrifying movies I've ever seen. I haven't seen any of the sequels, although I saw the whatever was going on in the 2013 movie with Alexandria Daddario, and literally, I mean, whatever was going on, because that movie's timeline is about like 20 years off of itself. I don't know. This one though, it just goes back to the beginning to tell us where Leatherface came from. This one has a lot of potential to be interesting, because we're going to be seeing basically how a psychopath came about, a murderous, empty-headed psychopath. But the trailer itself is pretty blah, just, basic horror tropes and all that. I don't know, whatever. It looks bloody. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have any strong feelings. I don't think it looks awful. I think that it looks maybe slightly better than it could have looked. It looks better than Texas Chainsaw, the 2013 movie, but other than that, I don't know. It's just blah for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, and they, believe it or not, they've already made a prequel. They made Texas Chainsaw at the beginning, and so in that movie, you see him as a kid. He grows up, and yeah, it's fast, but like he grows up, and you start with his first killings. So with this one, we're basically just seeing that again, just with him more as a child. So I don't get why they're going back to it. Yeah, it has that gory R-rated flavor to it, which I don't mind watching every now and then, but I didn't care for it. I really didn't. It's one of those.
I'll certainly see it. When does it come out?
Probably comes out around the same time as Jigsaw.
Let's see.
Probably October-ish. But like, I really love the first one with what Tobe Hooper did. It's very like, it's got like this nightmarish quality to it, but also feels kind of like palpable and realistic. That's why the first one works so well. But then when you advance the franchise and you start to get very like studio heavy and stuff, and it just doesn't. It's lost that kind of like horror touch to it almost, and it just seems too, once again, polished. And I don't give a shit.
Yeah, so October 20th is when it comes out.
So it actually comes out like either the same weekend or like the weekend before Jigsaw. So that should be
And this will give me an excuse because I'm sure that I'll probably see it that weekend. I may or may not. We'll see about what's expanding and what's not. But I will say like this will give me an excuse to finally watch the sequels, all of which are at my store. So I'll be able to see the movies. I've been interested in doing that for a while. So this is a good chance, especially the second one, which is super controversial. So
Well,
I'm
you know what? That's the deal we're gonna make then. If you are forcing us to do Leatherface on this show, then we're doing Jigsaw.
Oh, I don't mind. I don't mean about this show.
Oh,
Like,
no. I'm serious though. If you want to choose Leatherface as one of our options, that's fine. But we're also talking about Jigsaw the week after. Deal?
I guess so. I
No.
mean,
There's
I'll
no
probably
guess. So Joel's just going to accept it, and we're going to move on. So, all right. Speaking of moving on and acting like it didn't exist, the next one. Oh my God. I don't know how to say this, but there's a movie being made about 9/11. Now, this isn't the first. There have been many films with that event around it, whether it be that Robert Pattinson movie, Remember Me, or with World Trade Center, literally with the building name in the title. This one's called 9/11, and it's got good old winning himself, Charlie Sheen, Gina Gershon, Whoopi Goldberg, and it's basically the movie Devil, except with 9/11 as its catastrophe surrounding it. What the fuck? This looks like a student film. It looks terrible. Now, I will give it some credit because I see that Charlie Sheen is trying. And I see that he's trying, he wants to get back into the acting game. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to start getting back into these smaller films and get into the good graces of the public, that's fine. You do your thing, bro. Like, I don't mind that. But you chose this as your first, like, kind of comeback movie? It looks awful. Like, I just, the way it was cut together, the way it's shot, I'm not even joking. I went to school for this shit. Even I was not even that good at what I do. I could make a better film than this. It doesn't look appropriate. It just looks like it's a slap in the face to everyone that lost people that day. It just feels gross. Like it kind of does, and like but on a technical aspect, it's just not filmed well. It's not cut together well. The acting is whatever, but I can definitely tell, if I want to give it some credit, that Charlie Sheen he's trying. But yeah, it's definitely like the movie Devil, where people are just stuck in an elevator, and Whoopi Goldberg is like telling them to stay calm and whatnot, as they're in one of the elevators in one of the buildings. And of course, the planes hit the buildings and they start coming down and whatnot. And you know what's really fascinating about this trailer is they practically show everything. They practically show you like what the setup, what's going to happen in the middle, what's going to happen at the end, and even with the like what you actually think is going to happen, you're like, oh, okay, they're not going to really show that in the trailer. No, they show it. It's the last thing in the trailer. It's like, okay, then I don't have any desire to see this movie then, because I don't mind if you want to do a movie that it has an event that surrounds it. I mean, because we watch World War II and Holocaust films all the time, but you have to take care of it. You have to like have some type of class to it and some type of emotional story that has like really great human drama and just kind of shows you the good side to humanity and like the hero qualities that we have in people. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. But this one just looks like incompetent garbage. No, thank you, Joel. Can you explain to me what this is?
No, I cannot.
Okay, thank you.
It's, but here's the thing you didn't realize is that we all desperately needed a 9/11 movie starring Charlie Sheen, who is a 9/11 truther, which is going to be a very interesting thing to watch, considering he's one of the victims of what he believes was a U.S. conspiracy. So this is going to be interesting. This is one of the most misguided casting decisions, and I don't mean just because it's the guy who was, Tiger Blood, whatever. I mean that he literally does not actually believe that 9/11 happened as anything but a U.S. conspiracy. He believes that the U.S. government was behind this directly. And that is really weird. Another thing is that the director of the movie whose name is almost impossible to pronounce because his last name is spelled Guigui, is a music producer who has lucked into directing some movies. And so this is his next one. Comes out on September 8th because timely. Yeah, he directed one of those direct-to-video National Lampoon movies previously called Cattle Call, which is one of the most disgusting titles for a raunchy comedy I can think of. I don't understand this at all. I don't get this. I don't understand what the impulse was 16 years on to make this movie. It's too soon. And I hate saying that considering it's been 16 years, but maybe wait until 3011 for something like this, because there are still people alive who lost people this day, like you said, and I just don't understand this.
Well, Joel, let me spin something for you too.
It's also framing it as like they're in the elevator, yet they also apparently are able to keep up with every detail of the attack. I don't understand that, because from what I understand is like there was basically they didn't know anything that was going on in the elevators. Nothing. They didn't know what was going on around them, and that's part of a very small part, but a part of the tragedy of that day. So suddenly they know everything that's going on about in the attack around them. It's just so unbelievable. You got Whoopi Goldberg as wearing some sort of weird I don't know, is it a wig or something? I'm not sure. But just Charlie Sheen looks like he's high on cocaine during this movie, and I just don't understand it.
Like, Joel, let me spin something for you though, because we use that term occasionally, it's too soon. If you take care of it, it could be something special. I mean, if you look at Patriots Day, that attack literally happened 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't yes, is it kind of like does it kind of rub you the wrong way when these movies kind of come out? Sure, it does, but if you can handle it in such a classy way, I'm okay with that. But when you have a movie like this that's presented as a serious thing with Charlie Sheen as your lead about 9/11, no. That alone just doesn't even sound right.
It's the apparent treatment as some sort of survival drama where we all know the ending because if they were in the elevator they didn't make it, so we know what happens to them at the end, and to present it as some sort of weird survival drama is just very distasteful to me, and it's just, boy, I don't know. World Trade Center was fine because it was based on real cops, and we know that it was at least vaguely accurate. But this is pure revisionism in terms of it's just guesswork. We don't know if there were these people in this elevator. We don't know this. We don't know the stories of a lot of those people as it was happening, and so it's just guesswork, and it tips over into exploitation of this tragedy, and it's terrible. But let's move on to the next trailer, which is, I think, a lot better. It's called Only the Brave. This one was previously known as Granite Mountain, and it's from director Joseph Kosinski, who made Tron Legacy and Oblivion. Now he's moving on to something completely different, which is a sort of a tribute to the firefighters who take on forest fires. This one looks really terrific, I think. This has a crazy cast. There's Josh Brolin, Miles Teller, who's probably got a solid Oscar season going on here with this and Thank You for Your Service, and several other people involved in the cast. James Badge Dale, love that guy. Loved him since 24. He's going to be showing up here. And this one looks really strong. It's basically it's just going to probably follow them through a particularly awful forest fire that spreads into a town, and it's going to be sort of a Patriots Day, Deepwater Horizon kind of thing. Certainly has that Peter Berg feel to it. I think that where it's going to be a tribute to uh, this very, you know, intense job. And yeah, I like this trailer a lot. It's not very popular for some reason. I feel like that's because apparently, probably because the heroes were white, but nevertheless, I think it looks good, and I'm down to see it.
I agree. I watched the trailer. I really liked it. I actually got kind of emotional towards the end when Brolin was like, I'm proud to call you, like, my
Yeah,
yeah. So like, like there's moments like that to where you're like, dude, this could like work out really well because forest fires are some of the most dangerous things on Earth, and like I'm not, I don't. That's not hyperbole. I don't mean that lightly. Like it's actually like, I would, if you had to put like top 5 like disasters on Earth, that is one of them. You want to know why? Because they're really hard to control. They're called wildfires because they're fucking wild, man. Like you don't know where they're gonna go. They could destroy homes. They're destroying environments for animals and shit. Like they're destroying millions of trees, and when your fire gets that big, it is hard to take it out with water or any type of substance to kind of like suffocate the flames and whatnot. So that's why firefighting is, it's a very heroic thing. My uncle is a firefighter, and I understand the risks that are involved. And when you hear about all these forest fires in California, it's hard to listen to because they're really hard to, like I said, stomp out. So, yeah, this trailer, it worked wonders for me from start to finish. I love the performances. Josh Brolin, this is one of those guys that he could play Thanos or be Cable in Deadpool 2, but then also come out and do movies like this or, like No Country for Old Men and really kind of sell us as to why he's one of the most versatile actors working in the biz. And, of course, I've always liked Miles Teller, like, ever since I saw him in Spectacular Now. I've always been on this guy's side, even with his antics. He's kind of almost like verging on the Shia LaBeouf a little bit in terms of his personal life. I really hope he can kind of bounce back because just like with Shia LaBeouf, he's very talented in what he does. And Jeff Bridges, he's Jeff Bridges. I mean, come on. So he's always great. But yeah, it's a really great one. It's one of the ones I'm really looking forward to towards the end of the year, and I didn't even expect it. Like Joel put it on the list, and I was like, yeah, I saw the thumbnail, but I didn't really get engaged to watch it, but I'm glad I did because now I'm completely sold. Just like this next one, Joel, Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. Once again, it's one of those trailers that I saw as the thumbnail, and they were hyping it up in the Alamo Drafthouse for a while with one of their teasers, and I was like, what is this? And so I watched it. Now, Joel, this is also another film that it's on my radar. Like it's probably one of my most anticipated like indie films for the rest of the year. I absolutely love this trailer. So to set it up, Professor Marston, played by Luke Evans, he pretty much creates the Wonder Woman character, and it's also told as a drama with like him and his wife and like this almost like mistress almost, but then like his wife gets involved and like it's like this like psychological human drama, but also with like the concept of like Wonder Woman and how it plays into society, and like it was a fascinating trailer. I actually really enjoyed the structure of it. Love the performances in it. Yeah, Joel, I'm fucking on board for this one. So, what did you think about this one? Like, because I was kind of blown away on how kind of small it looked, but how effective it was in terms of its like drama and suspense.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It looks like a really fascinating movie, fascinating look at history, a little bit melodramatized, if that's a word. But nevertheless, it looks really good, and I'm in the same boat. I think it's one of my most anticipated smaller movies. Certainly did not realize that Wonder Woman came about this way, so it's very interesting to find that out by the way of this trailer, and I can't wait to see the context of that. It looks really solid, good performances. Can't wait. Our next trailer looks completely different, but really fun, and this is Proud Mary. This is, of course, named after the song, but it is about an assassin played by Taraji P. Henson.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
I just real quick, I'll let Joel continue. Taraji P. Henson. If I had to pick like a top 3 list, if you know what I'm saying, if you catch my drift, she's on there.
Yeah.
She's like one of the most gorgeous women ever, and I've had a crush on her for a long time. And like, she's a great actress, so it's like, yeah, I have a huge crush on her.
Yeah. No, this is going to be one of those where we're probably going to have like a further crush on her.
Exactly.
And it just looks so stylish and fun. She plays we don't really get a sense of the plot, of course, but that's not what this trailer's about. It's all about capturing the attitude of the movie, which is going to be a very cool throwback to the 80s kind of and 70s kind of assassin thriller. And just this particular one has a black woman, apparently, I'm guessing, targeting mainly black people, which is an interesting thing because that's all we see here. But anyway, I'm very interested, very, very interested in this. It looks like a lot of fun. And yeah.
Yeah, it's just like what you said. It kind of harkens back to the 70s and 80s, even down to a point where the font of the movie looks like kind of that old school
and
type
the
of flavor.
The use of the song is predictable, but it was great. My only thing where I'm just like it's an asterisk that the director is Babak Najafi, who made London Has Fallen.
I liked it.
Oh, okay. So that's the only thing, but I'm still open-minded. I mean, he can still make a good movie. He or she. I don't know.
I mean, I think Taraji P. Henson is a better actress than Gerard Butler. However, when you watch that movie, it's got some really cool action sequences in it. So I think that the director will really kind of tap into that and really make them kind of stylish, like you said, really exciting. And Taraji P. Henson, she is a sexy, dangerous woman. Like, when I look at her, it's just like, it gets me hot and bothered because, like, she's a very attractive woman, but, like, she gives off, like, that badass persona to where, like, do not fuck with this woman. Like, she will tear your shit up. And, like I said, there's something kind of powerful about that, and I absolutely love that. It's great casting. I know it turns me on. If you hear a knock on underneath my desk here in a little bit, you know what that is. All right, so, no, it's a great-looking trailer. I'm looking forward to it. I always like assassin movies and whatnot, but when we get into the box office results, I don't even know what the number is, but when Joel tells me, it pretty much reaffirms to me that like the kind of like the core black going movie audience is really strong because Girls Trip came out, and I'll guarantee you that it did very well. And so having this and having it represent kind of the black community with an assassin movie as, you know, a black female as its lead, that's really cool, man. Like, that's I really appreciate that quite a bit. And Taraji P. Henson, it's almost like she's taken her attitude from her character in Empire and applying that to the assassin world, and that's kind of cool. So I really enjoy it. Also, a trailer I really enjoyed, Joel, which kind of gives it off like a girl with a dragon tattoo type of old school murder mystery vibe. Is The Snowman, starring good old Michael Fassbender, one of my favorites, and Rebecca Ferguson. And Michael Fassbender, just to put it lightly, and I don't want to spoil anything for you guys if you want to watch the trailer, but Michael Fassbender plays a cop trying to solve a bunch of murders about this killer who leaves a bunch of notes behind and is dubbed as the Snowman. That's all you really need to know, but I love the luscious kind of cold cinematography that it provides. I love the actors involved. The trailer was just, I think, cut together very expertly in terms of really kind of capturing that suspense of this murder mystery, tracking down this serial killer. I loved it, man. I actually can't wait for this. That's one of my favorite like genres. Is like, you know, kind of like murder suspense, like, you know, serial killer. Like, you know, we gotta solve the murder, man. We gotta find out who did it. And we gotta track him down. Kind of like in Seven, where like, you know, they're following the clues and like you found gluttony. All right, let's move on to the next one. It's like, oh shit, they're the seven sins, and it's like, then they find the killer, and it's like, oh fuck. It's like it's a great climax. It's a great kind of arc for a story leading up to a really great kind of reveal / climax. I loved it. There's really nothing more to say. Fassbender is one of my favorites. Joel, do you like these types of movies where kind of focuses on like kind of like a Zodiac killer type of movie? And what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I love this one. I love the director. The director's name is Tomas Hudson, and he directed Let the Right One In, which was the original Norwegian film, Swedish, whatever, that was remade by Matt Reeves in 2010, and then he also directed Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy with that enormous cast. And this, I can tell you right now, is probably going to be a slightly misrepresented trailer in terms of the pace of the movie. They did this with Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and that one was very deliberate. This one's probably going to be the same. Tomas Alfredson is not a director who hurries, I think. He directs very deliberate movies. This looks terrific. I cannot wait. It looks like a very... I'm not going to give anything away about the plot, like you said. It's you got to watch the trailer to really experience that. But nevertheless, it's really good, and it looks really menacing. Like, the movie looks very dark. Very, 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 very dark. Like Seven, like you said, like Zodiac, like whatever else is an example of this. And I think that, man, I can't wait. The cinematography looks gorgeous. It's interesting because Tomas Alfredson, his last two movies were shot with Hoyte van Hoytema, who shot Dunkirk. And this is his first movie that is not shot by van Hoytema, which is a fun name to say. This one is shot by Dion Beebe, who works a lot with Michael Mann, shot Collateral, Miami Vice, etc. And so it looks very stylish. It looks really intriguing. And it looks utterly psychotic in terms of just this killer, because oh my gosh, like I saw this trailer twice. I watched it on can't remember, I don't know if it was my computer or my phone or whatever, but and then I saw it again in front of Dunkirk, and man, there is a shot that makes me wonder if this is going to be one of the most like depraved serial killer movies in a long time. And you'll just have to watch, but it involves heads. Let's just say. So, very good trailer, and yeah, it's a great piece of work.
I agree.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, you're actually
yeah,
you're getting a little fuzzy. You're going a little in and out. So I don't know what that is.
I don't know. My connection over here is kind of. I always record my amenity center, and the internet is sometimes rather choppy, but I'm trying to press through for sure.
All right. Well, there's one more trailer, and it's yours.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so
Joel just had a humongous brain fart there, folks. Because I was waiting for him. I was waiting for him to transition. He just kind of like dumbfounded a little bit.
You threw it off, man. All right, so our last trailer is Wonderstruck. Oh man, this looks wonderful. This sort of has a Hugo vibe to me. This one comes from director Todd Haynes, who, of course, directed Carol a couple years ago, and directed Safe back in the 1990s. Those are the two I've seen from him so far. But this one looks wonderful. It seems to be. I don't want to get into the plot too much because the trailer doesn't. But this is interesting because it seems to be that it sort of goes back and forth between two different timelines. And one of them is in black and white. One of them is in what looks to me like Technicolor, although I'm not sure. And yeah, oh man, this looks really charming. It looks like a happy movie, kind of. It probably won't be so happy, but nevertheless, really good trailer. Don't want to get into the plot because I feel like this is sort of like the Snowman, where you got to just watch the trailer to be surprised by it. But again, I'm fully on board. This comes out in December, I think, and it's going to be a major Oscar play like Carol was. Hopefully, it'll be a little more successful at that. But yeah, I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, it looks wonderful. It's it has, like you said, like this Hugo vibe, this like wholesome like family vibe almost. Like it's really weird because like his last one was an R-rated romance film, and now he's going back to like not a kid film, but like like I said, a wholesome family film. It looks imaginative. It looks really creative. The set design looks amazing and immaculate, just like with Carol. It looks absolutely delightful. It looks very creative, and I honestly can't wait for it. It looks like he's going to balance the two timelines very well, just like the critic quote said. So yeah, it looks like he's going to utilize camera technique, color, black and white, editing, cinematography, all that, and just kind of really make each one of them stand out, but also come together and not seem like two separate movies, but one whole piece. So yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. It's just a good trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that's the end of our trailers. What was your favorite one? I think mine is probably The Snowman. That's probably mine. And let us know what your favorite piece of news is. It's kind of a weird week for news, but I guess the Spawn adaptation, I don't know what my favorite one is. But anyway, that's our news. Chase, what's your favorite trailer?
Trailer... It's a tie between The Snowman and Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it's probably the same for me. Probably so. All right, well, let's move on to the reviews. We have 2 reviews for you guys. We led up to it with almost 2 hours of news trailers. Oh my gosh! But we are almost there, folks. We're there right now, I should say. We have 2 reviews for you. The first one is going to be for Dunkirk. This is the new film, the 10th feature film from director Christopher Nolan, who is one of the great hacks of Hollywood. I'm just kidding. So before we start, I have to say I did listen to Chase's podcast with Brian over the Top 5 Saturdays Live last night for Top 5 Christopher Nolan movies. I will reveal my top 5 at the end of my review, just out of interest. I just got to say, so I've been going through, with the exception of Following, I didn't know that it was still on Netflix. For some reason, I felt like it was off of Netflix, so I didn't even look. I didn't look to verify, which I probably should have done since it's so short. But I haven't seen it yet. I'll see it soon. But I've seen everything else. And I got to tell you, this guy is one of the best filmmakers working right now. I know that he's kind of the cool guy to hate because he's popular among certain douchebag crowds, but I love his films. I think that I even made a 180 degree turn on one that I'll talk about later. But I think that that this is the most interesting. I think this is the most interesting film he's tackled, and whether or not I mean best, you'll have to find out later. But I think it's the most interesting thing that he's tackled because we had never seen him do a war film before. This one is about the Dunkirk evacuation from the shoreline of France. In which there were about 400,000 Allied forces kind of forced to being like huddling together in a completely open and vulnerable position, and they were having to be evacuated from part of the shoreline that was being constantly attacked by German forces. And this one is a sort of kind of a dramatization of that evacuation through 3 very specific stories. All of the stories take place at different moments during the evacuation, which took 9 days. And then, of course, at the end, it all comes together. So what's really interesting to me here, I just want to get started with this. And I'm sorry to just kind of jump in instead of initial thoughts. I'm just going to jump in because I got to say, Christopher Nolan has made it a point, other than his Batman movies, to present us with puzzles. And with Memento, The Prestige, Inception, Interstellar, he's he's tackled that in a way that it's a literal puzzle with a literal solution, or a literal answer, a thing that is at the center of that puzzle. And Dunkirk is different, because what he's done here is he's presented the story of the Dunkirk evacuation as a puzzle, but basically the only reason is to construct it like a puzzle. He has differing, and it's an editorial masterpiece, because what he's done is he's taken 3 separate timelines, told them all at the same time, or we seem to think for a little bit, all at the same time, and then it comes together. There's no mystery at the end of it. There's no twist, nothing like that. It's just a puzzle structure. And I think that opens him up to making one of his absolute best films. And I'm telling you, man, this thing is really special. So those are basically my initial thoughts. I'm going to break it down in a bit, but Chase, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the thing with Christopher Nolan is that I actually prefer his non-Batman films than his Batman films. And I know a lot of people get started with like The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, and that's cool, but I think his older stuff is even better, and I just think he's progressively getting better as a filmmaker. And I know a lot of people have issues with Dunkirk, and I'm going to shut those down when we break it into the film. But yeah, I was looking forward to it. I have my issues with Interstellar, but I still enjoy it overall. It's a very well done kind of cinematic experience. And Dunkirk kind of plays the same way, except it's a little bit more emotionally investive than Interstellar. That's just my opening thoughts on that. But I absolutely loved it. I saw an IMAX 70 millimeter. What a great kind of like immersive world to sink into with that format. It's absolutely wonderful. So I went in expecting something good. I came out and got something great.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where I was super excited for it, and then I got progressively more excited as I did this rewatch of his movies. And I did watch them in total order, except for, well, I didn't watch The Prestige on this round because I just watched it a couple months ago on a whim. So I just didn't feel like, with a condensed week of it, I wanted to skip that this time. But nevertheless, I watched all the other ones in a row, and you're right. I think that I'm actually, I sort of differ with you on Interstellar. I think that is also one of his best. But I know that there are a lot of people who have a problem with, as you were talking about last night on the podcast, the answer to that particular riddle, I think, is kind of amazing, very ballsy. I think that it sort of steers him away from the modern-day Kubrick that he's been called, even though I think that that's an interesting comparison. I think that Kubrick was a lot colder than Nolan was in Interstellar. I think Interstellar showed that he could be a little more wearing his heart on his sleeve kind of filmmaker in the same way Spielberg is. And I thought that was his most Spielbergian movie, actually. But this one is a completely different beast. It is just as emotionally investing as the others. And I think I got to start again just with the editing, because how is this possible on this earth? I just don't understand how Lee Smith, the editor, who hasn't won an Oscar for Christopher Nolan yet, which seems amazing to me. How is this possible? Like, how are they able to take all of these 3 timelines, mix them perfectly into this nonlinear package, and make it all completely make sense? Like, there's nothing confusing about the timelines here. That might be because of Hoyte van Hoytema's cinematography, where he takes a different aesthetic to each of the vignettes. But again, like, a large part of that is in the editing, and I'm just amazed by it. it's got such a people hate it when people use the term avant-garde to describe a Nolan movie because he's a big Hollywood director, and I guess only foreign indie directors or whatever deserve the phrase avant-garde. But this is avant-garde. This is an avant-garde structure. It might be a little more mainstream than most of the movies we would call avant-garde, but there is an avant-garde element here, and I love that. I think that was a ballsy move for Warner Brothers to to get behind this movie, which is a $150 million budget. I mean, for a movie that is not told in order, that doesn't have any character that stands out from the other characters. There are no main characters in this movie. To have a structure that is about visual storytelling more than about plot is very daring for a major Hollywood studio to take that on right now. In the age of fairly straightforward superhero movies, I think that it's a valuable thing, kind of a commodity, I guess, at least in Hollywood. And my gosh, it's just amazing. The structure of this movie is breathtaking. Like you can't say very often anymore with Hollywood that you get something new. And 2 weeks in a row, we've had War for the Planet of the Apes, which took the structure of like a Western and applied it to the threequel of a reboot franchise, made it feel French, fresh and new and thrilling. And then now here we've got the war genre, which I think we can agree has kind of been overplayed a lot in movies, especially recently. And then he plays with the structure in a way that makes it all feel fresh. It's not, the oorah kind of jingoistic thing. It's a very sad, very urgent story that considers the event as a whole. It considers the characters as a unit, and it's basically just trying to convey the experience of war. And that's a very simple idea, but then it injects that with such a fresh, urgent style. I just love this movie. And so that's the editing. The sound editing is superb. Now, I will say that I'll just kind of group the sound editing and cinematography here because I saw the movie, unfortunately, because of my schedule, I can only see movies when I can see movies, right? So my grandparents were coming in on Friday. I didn't want to see it on Friday evening. I had stuff to do before that. So I had to see it when I could see it, and I was closing on Thursday. So I basically saw it like in the opposite format from 70 millimeter IMAX. I saw it in the regular DCP version in a small theater room. And, I wish that I would have been able to see it on a bigger screen than I did. Alas, I had to see it when I could, and that's the times that lined up. But nevertheless, I mean, it's still thrilling, and I think that Nolan really tapped into something that's almost primal. It condenses war to images and sounds and desperate faces and minimal dialogue, very minimal dialogue, and it's just really fascinating. The sound editing is phenomenal. The aerial gunfights are just like the firing of the bullets is magisterial. Like just listening to that in the theater was amazing. The cinematography is beautiful. Like I said, it takes kind of 3 different visual approaches, very slightly different, but different nevertheless, visual approaches to each of the vignettes. I felt like that was pretty smart because it helps us to delineate them a little bit. During a lot of the same background imagery is used, so it's nice that there was a different color palette for each one. And the performances are all functional and solid. It's not that there's, I think, really a couple of people that stand out, but even then it's them that stand out rather than the characters. This is, again, the characters as a unit. And I felt like the ones that stood out were Tom Hardy, who plays one of the dogfighters in the air, who are trying to ward off German forces from the beach. And he does, as somebody on Twitter put it the other day, he does some Hall of Fame eye acting here because he's having to act through the mask, and it's great. And then I thought that Cillian Murphy and Mark Rylance were really good in the roles as Murphy plays this shell-shocked soldier who is saved by Rylance's character, who is a very patriotic citizen who decides, instead of letting the Navy requisition his boat, he's just going to use it to help with the rescue effort. And he goes out there himself. And that whole segment takes on its own sense of tragedy, but I'm not going to get into that. Nevertheless, I felt like the rest of the performances were functional and solid. It's creating a tapestry of these characters as a unit. Sometimes it's a literal unit where you have the three soldiers who are the younger soldiers, one of whom is played by Harry Styles of One Direction, but he just kind of disappears into his role with the other two. And then you have Kenneth Branagh shows up as a commander, but really none of the characters stand out from the other. It's very much as a unit. They all have similar goals, and I felt like the screenplay treated them each with about as much grace as it could when trying to convey the entirety of the war experience. Honestly, it's to the point where we might learn some of these people's names, but I honestly can't remember them. I mostly found them out whenever I was formatting my review page this morning. I finally put it up today, and then I filled in the cast, and I always put the names of the cast's characters. That's when I learned most of these names, because they don't really matter. It's not a character drama. It's a big montage of war imagery, desperate faces, and music and feeling and attitude, and it's amazing. So I love this movie. If I have any gripes, then I suppose I'd say that actually I don't know if I have gripes. I don't know if it's quite the highest grade, but I don't know if I have really any gripes, honestly. I don't have any problems with the movie. I think it's a technical marvel, and I think that's the most important thing. So maybe some of the performances could stand out, from the other ones, but I don't think that was Nolan's intention. So I can't really fault them for that. The actors kind of were told to do what they did, and whatever kind of little character moments they added was probably of their own volition rather than Nolan's. So I really don't have any problems. I kind of touched on all of my positives. It's a great war film, one of the best in years, I think. And those are my thoughts on Dunkirk.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much have the same sentiments as you. I gotta bring something up, because most people I see online that say there's no emotional weight to it, and it's just kind of void of any type of emotion, and it's just an experience, it's not about the characters. I gotta tell you, would you rather have what Nolan did, which was kind of a ballsy move on his part, to do 3 non-linear stories pretty much thrown on the screen as these puzzle pieces all coming together as one giant puzzle at the end? Or, as much as I like Hacksaw Ridge, would you rather have that over-the-top, cliche, cheesy, traditional type of war film? I think what Christopher Nolan did was not really concentrate on characters, not really concentrate on a linear story. What he wanted to do, which I think he did expertly, was create an experience, create the event of Dunkirk. Not really focus on, this soldier's got a baby at home, he's got to make it back at home with a, bow tie ending at the end. No. He wanted to focus on the actual event that was horrific and involved a lot of people trying to make it to safety. And I think he did that very well. And also, a lot of people that are saying that there's not like any type of emotional weight to it, Joel nailed it perfectly. Whether you have Tom Hardy's eyes, or you have Harry Styles' facial expressions, or you have Mark Rylance's nuanced facial expressions, everyone has some type of emotional weight to it, even if they don't say anything. So it is there and it is present. It's just not in a traditional sense like you would want it to be. And I think a lot of people are backlashing this movie because of that. And I don't think you should put that in consideration, because I think what he did differently actually worked. And it's like what Joel said, it's more about everyone as a group and not singling out a single person. It's more about these men who went through this situation and all come together to try to make it out alive. That's what it is. It's a survival tale, just about these people just trying to survive and really just escaping the horrors of war. And when you capture that experience and you do it that well, you're pretty good in my book. Yeah, could the performances be a little bit better? Sure. But I think what was given, they were suitable in their role. I believed Tom Hardy as a pilot fighter. Those dogfights were amazing. I believed every single second of it. The guys in the Harry Styles group, I believe that group. I believe Mark Rylance was just this normal citizen trying to go help. I believed all these characters, even if they didn't have to say much. So I didn't find that a problem, because I was submerged into this world. It was completely exhilarating. I was white knuckled at the edge of my seat the entire time. It didn't let up. As soon as the movie starts and when the movie ends, it's nothing but the battle. So it's exhilarating filmmaking from start to finish, and Christopher Nolan directs it expertly, just like he does with the editing and the cinematography. To go on to what the editing with Joel is like, when you have these three non-linear story structures coming together in these arcs, it can appear messy. But to me, I thought it worked out just well, like for the story that was being presented in front of us. I loved all the scenes with Tom Hardy and the dogfighting. I loved all the boat scenes with Mark Rylance. And when you jump back to the group on the beach, I loved that shit too. Like everything was so compelling, and the story was so interesting and rich that nonlinear kind of jumping around didn't bother me, because I actually thought like it flowed very well. Going from one story that was a week ago versus one that was an hour ago and one that was a day ago, it actually all worked out very well. So the editing didn't bother me at all, like some people claim it to be. It's definitely an exhilarating, intense experience that relies on the editing and the sound editing as well, and the sound design of this war. Guns, planes, boats, everything has to work together and seem believable, and I think the sound editing just does that. I do have a couple gripes though, and one has to do with the sound mixing, but we'll get to that in just a second. The cinematography is breathtaking. I saw it in the 70mm IMAX, and I don't know how in the fuck he got that 70mm IMAX camera up in the air like that and filmed all those dogfights like that, because that was fucking impressive. I've never seen anything like that. Yeah, but everything else, like, it seemed so epic in scope, and it seemed like you were there. I think IMAX 70mm is like the only way to view this thing. Like, it's so good, and like it'll just spoil you. You're like, dude, I want to see every movie in this format now that has the right story and subject to do it. Not every movie you should see should be in 70mm IMAX, but this definitely deserves it because it is a harrowing experience about survival, and Nolan delivers that very, very well. My only two gripes, and one is a technical thing, and one is the sound mixing. The technical thing is this, and I don't care if you're Transformers, and I don't care if you're Dunkirk, I'm still going to ream you on it. I do not like the frame switch. I do not like the ratio switch as I'm watching it, and I'm seeing this full, luscious, tall building-esque 70mm, and then it shrinks down to widescreen. I don't like that, because the main issue with this one that I noticed even more in Transformers Last Night is that when it shrunk to the widescreen shots, the color correction changed. It was more of like a blue kind of grayish, cool temp, and then when it blew up to the IMAX 70mm, it was more of a luscious kind of orangey glow to it, set in contrast to this hellish nightmare that these people are going through. So that was really bothersome just on a technical level. I was like, if you're going to switch frames like that, I can forgive it if it's the same color palette. But it wasn't. It was completely different. So I was like, I don't know if Nolan knew that, or if like someone raised a question up and was like, yo, should we change this? So that kind of bothered me, and this might have been the theater's fault, I don't know, but the sound mixing on this was a little bit unbearable sometimes, because Hans Zimmer's score, yes, it was effective, but when you mix that with the heart pounding bass pulse that was constant throughout the film with no relief whatsoever, it can give you a headache. So I thought, like, with the kind of like the bassy nature of the film was a little bit too powerful, and I thought the mixing was kind of bad in some parts, to where like I couldn't even hear the dialogue. The dialogue was a little bit hidden, and I understand that this is kind of like a visual movie, and it's more about the visual experience with nuance acting versus like dialogue acting. But still, if a character has some dialogue to say, I would like to hear it. So I couldn't even hear like the last like ending bit of the movie where like the monologue is being said, and I was like, well, that kind of blows. I can't really hear anything. It's not because I'm deaf, it's because those fucking IMAX theaters are fucking ridiculous. But so yeah, those are my only two complaints, to be honest with you. It's just kind of a technical thing with the ratio switches, and then of course the sound mixing I thought was a little bit too much and too harsh sometimes, not really mixed well with the dialogue. But other than that, man, I agree with Joel. It's one of the best war films in the genre. It's not the best war film. I know a lot of people are bitching and complaining that when people say that Dunkirk is a really good war film, they'll be like, well, what about, Full Metal Jacket and, Saving Private Ryan? It's like, I didn't say it's the best of all time, but it's one of the best in the genre. Yes, are there better war films out there that I enjoy more? Of course. But if you're going to look at Dunkirk on the face of it alone, it's a wonderful piece of cinema that's exhilarating from start to finish, expertly directed, like tightly edited, gorgeous cinematography. There's a lot of great things to praise about this movie, and the ballsiness nature of going this different route with its storytelling, which I applaud. So those are my thoughts on Dunkirk. I think Joel, did I cover everything properly? Like, because I almost went on a tangent there about the people bitching about the emotional quality of it.
No, I mean it's an important point to make, because I think that people constantly confuse character, like sympathizing with characters and being able to connect with them as, as basically them saying I can only really connect with characters who talk a bunch, and that's just dumb, because what we're not going to learn is their histories. Because if we learn their histories, that would be just a bunch of expository dialogue that's useless. So
Joel, you
got to shift your expectations into this very condensed story where the characters are not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is the evacuation, is the event itself. And so I feel like people are just kind of placing their own unrealistic expectations onto the movie, and then saying, "Well, I wasn't emotionally involved in it." I mean,
well, it's like in Christopher Nolan, he made a more realistic war film. Like, if you and I were on the battlefield, I'm not going to just be like, "Hey, what's your name? Cool. Can you tell me your backstory?" Like, we're going to be like, "No, we need to get the fuck out of here." Like, that's
right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even sure. Like, do they even know each other's names? I mean, it's basically, well, I think they do introduce each other to each other, but like not for about half an hour into the movie. And so, yeah, I think it's just a matter of the viewer adjusting their emotional kind of attachment to movies to fit this one. And, every movie's different. So not every movie is going to be like the other movies where you can easily, or more easily, I guess, attach yourself to the characters. But, I mean, come on. So as for the sound mixing, I totally get that. Nolan movies have been famous for kind of overmixing ever since Inception, I think, was where people first started to notice that. I will say that I didn't have a problem understanding any of the dialogue, and I know that that seems like I'm lying, but I'm. This is something I like to always say. I have 100% hearing, so I'm able to, and I'm just able to like hone in on the dialogue, and then my brain works to understand it. Like it takes me a little bit sometimes, and it did take me a little bit in here, but I was able to do that simply because of the fact that it's just something I've always been able to do. I was able to do it with Bane, in fact, when a lot of people couldn't understand him in the theaters. You know, it was difficult, but I could, and I got every line of dialogue. So I will say though that I think it might be directly connected to the 70 millimeter IMAX. I think maybe IMAX speakers are a little different than regular ones. So for me, it wasn't as much of a problem. The mixing wasn't as loud. The bass wasn't as loud as you were saying. So
And Joel, that could be the case, but that was the experience that I had, and I have to judge it off that experience.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that, yeah, again, it was just tied to our different experiences with it. I will say, though, that the Blu-ray to The Dark Knight Rises makes Bane's dialogue completely understandable. So I think that that'll probably be the case here, is they're going to, like, ramp the mixing of the dialogue that's harder to understand because it's being spoken, like, through the microphones and the planes and stuff. They're probably going to mix that or remix it or whatever they did for The Dark Knight Rises. They're going to do here, and it's probably going to be completely understandable then, because that's how it was with Dark Knight Rises. Like it was a significant difference between the theater and the home viewing experience of that of listening to Bane, and the same thing with a lot of the score in Inception was very loud, and in the theater kind of drowned out some of the dialogue. But on Blu-ray, it's completely hearable. So I totally get that. All right, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to give my I'm going to say that my top five, just for the point of interest, like as a connection to last night's top five Saturdays live episode. My top five Nolan movies at number 5, The Dark Knight. Which is a lot lower than a lot of people would have it, but that's where it is for me. Number 4 is Inception, which is one that I made a huge 180 on this week. It's weird because I originally saw it and loved it, and then every viewing after that, which I did 7 viewings in a year or something, was underwhelming. And then in 2012, I think I watched it right before The Dark Knight Rises. And I must have lent it to somebody or something happened, and I lost it. I lost my Blu-ray, and I don't mean the Blu-ray disc. I mean the whole thing. I lost the case, the packaging, everything. I don't know where it went. So for 5 years, I couldn't watch it, and I had that previous memory of the last viewing, and I always just said, I don't like Inception. I think it's his only bad movie, or only not good movie, I should say. But I don't know. Like Chase told me, I don't know what dank kush I was smoking, but I love that movie. Anyway, that's number 4, and then Interstellar is number 3. I think that it's a really strong movie about emotional. It sort of approaches space exploration and emotion at the same time. It's really interesting. Number 2 is Dunkirk. It's a great film. And then number 1, Chase and I are united on this. The Prestige is his masterpiece. I think that it's probably one of my favorite movies. That movie it hits every area that just makes me giddy whenever I watch it. And anyways, those are my top 5. I will say that Dunkirk gets an A. This is a superb movie. I didn't really have any gripes. I just wouldn't give it an A+. Those are very special occasions, but this is certainly a great film and one of my favorites this year. So my grade for Dunkirk is an A.
I actually agree. I'm gonna give it a solid A. Can't give it the plus because that mixing was just sometimes headache-inducing, and I'd have to watch it a little bit more to give it the A+. Because, like Joel said, I reserve those for movies that I know for a fact that those are going to stand to be masterpieces. That's why I'm comfortable with giving Logan an A+. I'm comfortable with giving War for the Planet of the Apes an A+. There was just something about it. When you watch like that masterpiece of a movie, you fucking know. And Dunkirk, I'm not saying that like it can't be like better as time goes on, but as it stands, I think it's a solid A film, which I don't know why people would throw pitchforks at us. That's a pretty high fucking grade. We're only like 0.5 away from like giving it the perfect score. So like, I think it deserves a solid A. You know what's going to be really fascinating about when we talk about a Ghost Story, Joel, is that I'm going to give Ghost Story a lower grade, but I actually preferred it a lot more than Dunkirk. So that's going to be kind of the fascinating conversation that we're going to have about a Ghost Story. So are we ready to jump into this?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I'll
All
go
right.
ahead and...
You're going to go ahead and do that? Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
So I'll go ahead and start off. So I was looking forward to a Ghost Story. Of course, A24, one of my favorite companies, to kind of just snatch up movies and create movies on their own. And for the most part, they knock it out of the park. But then you'll have some like a Spring Breakers or Barely Lethal, and you want to question life. But with a Ghost Story, I heard a lot about Sundance that this was a really kind of quiet, somber, surreal look into the process of grief and losing someone and eventually trying to move on. It could be like a very heartwarming tale and really kind of hit you in the feels. And I gotta tell you, just with my opening statement, that's absolutely the case. I have some issues with it for sure, but I love this movie. I think it's a really kind of like I said, kind of pun intended, out of body experience, and kind of has this surrealist nature to it that tackles the whole grieving process in a very kind of supernatural, kind of dramatic sense that I've really never seen before. So I'm just gonna say I loved it for sure. So Joel, what are your initial thoughts? And then we'll jump into it.
This is boring art house trash. I'm just kidding.
You son of a bitch. I actually believed you. I was just like, you asshole. I was like, we're about to have a fucking throwdown.
No, I love this movie. It's a great piece of work, and I can't wait. I can't figure out what gripes you have, so that's going to be interesting to find out, because maybe I have an idea. Obviously, I didn't watch his review. He posted one, but I didn't watch it because I wanted to find out what he thought live. But yeah, no, I love this movie. So go ahead and dig into it on your end.
All right. So like I said, I thought it was like this really cool, like dreamlike type of movie where it almost felt like, it didn't even feel like it was on planet Earth. It felt like it was on a different planet. But it's really awesome because it kind of applies that kind of sci-fi fantasy nature to it, while still being very low budget and still being very powerful on the emotional side. So all the positives I liked. I don't know where to begin. I think David Lowery is probably my favorite part about this movie, which he's the director, because like I said, he really kind of tackles this unique perspective on this thing that we've seen in movies countless of times. We've seen people die in movies. We've seen characters die and have other characters try to respond to that by going through this process of loss and just pain and suffering. But we've really never seen it from the point of view of when that person dies, we see their ghost kind of like looking at the person that they have left behind. That's a very interesting kind of prospect on it, because when you are a spirit like that, you can't really say or do anything. Like, you can make noises, sure, but like, you have to sit there and suffer with the person that you left behind as well. And it's kind of really just sentimental and disturbing and kind of heartfelt at the same time. It's a really kind of fascinating look upon that. I will say, jumping into the negatives, because this actually it makes sense for the story and whatnot, because I was invested in the story for the most part. The first act of the movie, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And to be quite frank with you, I almost checked out because it was so slow and lethargic, and just it had this like slow burn quality to it that I couldn't get into it. But there's a certain point in the movie where things happen and people leave. And once a certain character leaves the home, I became invested a lot more. Because the director started tapping into like this kind of philosophy of dying and the afterlife and moving on, and how for ghosts, time doesn't really move on, it just kind of stands still. It's kind of like they're in limbo almost. Like, it started kind of tapping into that a little bit more, and I started to become really invested. Because at the beginning, with its slow burn nature, it was really hard for me to get into the relationship of Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. Towards the end of the movie, I actually cared about them more than I did at the beginning. So that's why it got impressively better for me as the movie went on. I will say that, speaking of the performances, they're not like... It's not like, Oscar-worthy performances. Just in my opinion, like, they're very good. Like, they're good in their roles, and I think they can capture the essence of their characters very well. And Casey Affleck does a lot of, no pun intended, faceless acting that is very effective. But the performances aren't like just like out of this world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not just like, oh my god, my minds were blown. It's like they were serviceable for the movie, and they do a very good job. But it's more about the concept of the story and the story in general that I appreciate the most, not the acting. One thing I do appreciate is the cinematography. It's closed off in a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's not widescreen, so it provides more of an intimate kind of like alluring cinematography where it's like it's all encompassing. Nothing is wasted, so whatever is framed, that is that's what matters. Like I said, it's kind of got this like very intimate feeling to it, so you feel a lot closer to the characters after certain things happen to them. And so I appreciate that kind of ratio change instead of widescreen. The music was really good. It was very haunting, kind of majestic and cosmic almost, but it kind of applies to this the afterlife and like kind of like mentality. So I really enjoyed the music quite a bit. That's pretty much it for me. Like, I'm gonna give it a lower score than Dunkirk, but I actually enjoyed it more than Dunkirk, and I would put that in my top 5 more than Dunkirk. Dunkirk is more like a bottom 5 for me for right now, but Ghost Story was one of those ones to where when the end of the movie happens, and Joel knows what I'm talking about, you sit there and you think about it, and it's gonna be one of those endings that's gonna be pondered about for years, and people are gonna try to decipher it. So first act, a little slow, but after that, I enjoyed the hell out of it. And that ending sequence, when certain things happen, and you're like, holy shit, this is what the movie actually was. I was kind of blown away by it. Like, I just thought it was masterful storytelling on such a low budget level. David Lowery is one of my favorites now. So I need to see more of his movies. Pete's Dragon is the only one I've seen, but a Ghost Story gives me more hope for seeing stuff like Anthem Body Saints. So those are my kind of positives and slight negatives for the film A Ghost Story. So Joel, what did you think about this one?
It's so interesting because we both are I'm about to voice, but we are both voicing great appreciation for this movie, but we are kind of the opposite on a lot of this. And I don't mean complete opposite on everything, of course. I mean kind of opposite on some things. I think the entire last half hour of this is absolutely fascinating to watch as it happens. It's kind of amazing because what the movie ends up being about is a lot bigger than itself, if that makes any sense. It's a lot bigger than we thought from the beginning.
Yeah, because like that actually puts it perfectly. That's what I was trying to come across without spoiling. Is like the movie is presented in the trailer as like this is what it's going to be, but once it kind of takes this sharp turn, it becomes something different and something, like you said, bigger than itself, and it raises a lot of questions about death and the afterlife and whatnot. And like I that was when it got really compelling.
Yeah, and it certainly embraces, I think, maybe not fully to where it's a genre entry or whatever, but sort of embraces the supernatural elements of the afterlife as the movie itself understands it to be. to where it even like, and I'm not going to give anything away about the scene, although it would require context. It even kind of sort of addresses the whole a ghost is an angry spirit concept in one scene, where we get to see from the ghost's perspective what an invisible force throwing things in a room looks like. That's very, very interesting to me. But the thing where we differ is the first act, which I was completely into that. There is a scene, and I will just say that this is not a movie that will get along with mainstream audiences very well. And my proof to that is the fact that during my screening, or my showing, whatever you want to call it, which was last night, there were 4 walkouts from this movie. 2 pairs of people each, with, so 4 people. And the first walkout was from, I think, like a mother-daughter pair who walked out during a scene where a character eats pie for 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute pie eating scene, and why it's 5 minutes and why the character is eating pie and what the pie means to her at the point in the story, you'll have to discover for yourself. But I sort of had 2 reactions to that walkout. I was thinking, on the one hand, people frustrate me. And on the other hand, I was like, well, of course, because this is a movie that is a very, 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 very specific, takes a very specific kind of mindset to approach it. It's a very art house movie. And, I know that I made the joke that it's boring art house trash earlier, but the art house part of that phrase is right. This is a very, very much an artful, deliberately paced movie that is not about the supernatural elements that come in later. It's about grief. It's about loneliness. And as one of the quotes on the trailer said, it's about the enormity of time. Really, the entirety of time, if you think about it. And I'll leave you all to ponder that until you see it. But it's interesting that we're kind of the opposite on some of these, because in another way, I'm opposite on the performances. I think that they are superb across the board in a way that is absolutely standout. They are. I thought that Casey Affleck was terrific. There are moments, and he's always under the sheet, by the way. Whatever the shot, he's always under the sheet. They never used a body double for this. And why would they? I mean, I don't think anybody would agree to that, given the nature of the movie. But nevertheless, it's always him under the sheet, and he's always able to be convincing as a presence that is kind of the world, but also not. And he also is able to incorporate what I felt were some really, really neat moments of very, very subtle physical comedy that are really interesting. And I know that Chase is probably baffled by that. Maybe not. I don't know, but probably. And the reason that I say this is because there is a scene where a character is placing LP records into boxes. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there sitting by that character is Casey Affleck in the ghost costume. And you get these little moments of, like, sort of semi-baffled reaction, like, yeah, totally, you're going to keep that. Oh, you're putting it in that box. Because he looks at each of the records as they go in the boxes, and you can feel like there's, obviously the characters let go of them, because at this point he's dead. But there's also, like, she's going to remember me, but she's not going to remember me with this record. She's going to remember me with the other records. It's like she's choosing between artifacts of his life to remember him by in front of him without knowing that he's there. And he's able to incorporate the sadness of the character situation with, like, very slight moments of just inspired physical comedy, because he's only able to act, physically. during these sequences, and it's really fascinating to see. That's why I think it's one of the best performances of the year. And then when he's alive, we get a sense of their relationship and how their dynamic is perhaps not exactly solid. And I think that it's during those moments that Rooney Mara really shows her capability. And then, with other scenes like the pie eating scene where she's, I kind of gave that away now, but nevertheless, there's a pie eating scene involving Rooney Mara, and we see, she's not just eating, she's stabbing the pie with a fork. She's crying while she's doing it, and we kind of get, why she's eating the pie now, what it means to her to eat the pie, especially what has just happened, and it's just such a great performance. It's very soulful. The whole movie is that way. And then you move forward, and there are other characters that come in. There's a party house where we see, and I don't even know if you knew it was her, but Kesha is a party girl in this house. Plays, I guess probably not herself, but nevertheless, she makes an appearance here. We see a Spanish-speaking family. And it's just, what this means to this character, how he floats through all of these lives. You'll have to discover. I'm not giving away too much, trust me, especially given the last about 20 minutes. But it's just fascinating. It's unlike anything I really can think of. And it's literally ruminative about these things in a way that is just really contemplative. What, there may be like 20 lines of dialogue in the whole movie? I'd say probably about that. And it's just fascinating because he condenses a lot of really dense philosophical ideas into movement, into consideration, into observation, and it's fascinating to me. And so yeah, those are my thoughts. The cinematography, as you said, beautiful. The concept of doing the 4x3 with the rounded off edges really works wonders because it closes us in on the characters, so that any close-ups have more impact, and then the wide shots are still closed off, so they have more impact. And that's one of my favorite conceits. Like Mommy did it a couple years ago.
Yeah.
A similar thing. And in fact, it's not entirely coincidental that in Mommy, it was the point when they kind of broke free of that and used that as a literal gimmick that the movie kind of worked for me. It started working. This is a different situation where everything is the 4x3, but it's a beautiful movie. The music, as you said, is gorgeous, especially the song that repeatedly plays throughout. I think that is that an original song? Pretty sure it is.
It sounds like one.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it sounded like Casey Affleck singing it, and that's all. He's a music producer in the movie. I'm sort of telling a little bit more maybe than I should, but nevertheless, it's a great movie, and So I was about to give away my grade before we actually wrap it up, but I just have to say it's one of my favorites of the year. It's somewhere in my top 5 or 6. So I loved it, and I can't wait to see it again on Blu-ray because I'm feeling it's going to look pretty amazing. And very crisp cinematography. It was definitely filmed in Texas. I think that you and I can both agree on that.
Yeah.
We recognize, even though we've probably not been to these specific neighborhoods, we recognize these neighborhoods. Like these neighborhoods exist on the outskirts of a bunch of cities that are very recognizable, and that's because it's where the director came from. It's where David Lowery came from, and I completely agree with you in terms of the fact that he's a vital voice. I loved Ain't Them Body Saints. I loved Pete's Dragon. I think that those are the 2 that he's directed so far.
Mm-hmm.
Might be about that other than this, and I think this might be my favorite of those 3. So yeah, I think he's a great voice. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I just think it's for a movie that's primarily about a ghost, it's like what Joel said, very soulful, ironically, and it's also interesting to see like a ghost wander around
Yes.
Earth with no rhyme, reason, or direction, kind of like what humans are like. We have no rhyme, reason, or direction. We just kind of wander, and there's something kind of poignant about that. So, listen, I love this movie to death. It's in my top 5 for sure. I actually, on a favorable scale, I prefer it more than Dunkirk. However, that first act almost lost me. So I can't get it to that A status. So I'm gonna give a Ghost Story a B plus, which I think is fine. Like it's, but I'm telling you, like that whole first, I'm telling you, it was just when a certain character leaves, that's when I got vastly more interested. So I'm not dogging the movie. I'm just saying, like, it almost lost me, but it ended so well that I couldn't get it anything below a B plus. So that's my final score for that. I think it's still a movie that I recommend. I know Joel's going to recommend it. I recommend both these movies, but Ghost Story is probably my favorite out of the two.
Yeah, and speaking about the end again, I'm not going to give anything away about it, but the kind of like thrill it gave me in terms of how I'm really watching this right now was sort of comparable to the similarly like about the last 10 minutes of Under the Skin.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
yeah, where it's just like it. I mean, it's been great up to that point, but then when it climaxes and brings you to the credits, I mean, it just is so thrilling and unpredictable and unlike anything I've seen before. It's fascinating, and yeah. So I'm going to be giving A Ghost Story an A. I totally understand the thing about the ratings. The listeners should understand that ratings are mostly arbitrary. It's the thoughts that count. So I totally understand the impulse to sort of give it lower just because of the things on the checklist like that it doesn't fulfill for you. I'm giving it an A because of the full experience of that. Plus, I didn't quite have the same problems you, so obviously I wouldn't go the same direction. But nevertheless, I felt like the movie was excellent, unpredictable, unconventional, completely unconventional. We have a colleague out in Chicago named Mark Dusick who gave this his highest rating, and one of his sentences in the review that he wrote was it's boldly, uncompromisingly different and challenging, and I think that that's very accurate to this movie. It's just so special. It's the kind of movie that you don't see very often, and thank goodness for A24, for sticking up for these movies because it's a great one. All right, guys. So B plus from me and B plus from Chase. I totally confused it. B plus from Chase, A from me on Ghost Story. We both gave Dunkirk an A. Yeah, it's a great month for movies. Like,
Yeah.
I have a feeling that 10 years on, we're going to be talking about July 2017 in as much with as much reverence as we talk about like the year of 1999 or
Right.
the Oscar season of 1999, because it's been amazing. Like we've reviewed 4 movies, and 3 of those got an A, and the only reason that the 4th one didn't get an A is because it got an A plus.
Yeah.
So for me at least, and so I mean it's and an A minus, like a B plus and higher from you on all 4. So it's been a crazy month. We'll see. Next week, might as well tell it now. But next week we're going to be talking about all of the Comic-Con stuff that's broken. We're going to be reviewing Atomic Blonde. That's our big one. So it'll probably be a long show as well, but we'll have more to talk about. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy. All right, so the last bit of business that we have to take care of, my friend, is the box office results.
Oh, you son of a bitch! It's my week, and
It is.
Oh God, this is gonna suck so much dick because I know it's.
I'll give you the reminder. So, the 4 that I'm going to mention, I'll just give you some. Wait a minute. Weird. So they like changed in the last few minutes. Okay. So I'm gonna have you guess. What are the top five? To remind you, we got Dunkirk, Girls Trip, and Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets.
Okay, so this is the direction I'm gonna go. As much as I love a ghost story with all of my heart and passion, it did not make anywhere near the top five. I like Valerian on a visual level, but that movie is very generic, and I think it flopped here. I think Luc Besson might as well close Europa Corps down because he's sunk in $200 million fucking dollars into this thing, so that one's out of the question. So I'm gonna go with Dunkirk number 1, War for the Planet of the Apes number 2. I know Girls Trip probably killed it way more than Rough Night, so I'm gonna say that's number 3. Number 4 is gonna be Despicable Me 3, and I think The Big Sick probably held on there at number 5.
I'm gonna let you come to a realization about a movie that opened 2 weeks ago.
Oh, god damn it! God damn it! Not again! Not again, Joel! This happened with the Transformers 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, you got some stuff wrong here.
Son of a bitch.
So, Despicable Me 3 is number 6. The Big Sick's number 8.
Ugh, what the fuck?
5 million, and then Despicable Me 3 made 12.7 million. So, all right. And then A Ghost Story is definitely not anywhere near the top 10 even. It's number 22 with 141,000. This is not a movie that needs a whole bunch of money. I think it costs like $1 million or something. So it's made 480.5. Stuff like that. It does fine. All right. Number 5 was Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets.
Really? Holy shit!
Yeah, with 17 million.
Good lord.
Yeah, it has and this is a weirdly specific number, but it has a $209,184,000 budget.
Those Europeans, man, they like to be accurate with their shit.
Yeah, they do. So it's got to make, and I actually did this in like a calculation.
Oh God.
It's got to make because we have to hold on, sorry, 209,184. There we go. We got to double it for the theaters. So it has to make, in order to break even, it has to make $418,368,000 just to do that. And then they spent probably like 100 million on advertising. So it is going to be out like a wet fart. I see it later today. I haven't seen it yet. And literally a wet fart. I mean, it just comes out the butt, and I'm just kidding. All right.
It just kind of seeps in the air, and you're like, I don't want to go anywhere near that.
Yeah, right. So, goodness, I have not seen it. I meant to see it this weekend, but like I said, busy. So I'm going to be seeing it today. I got to go home and do some stuff, probably late afternoon. I'm looking forward to it slightly. I think it looks weird and fun, and I know Chase saw it. I'll let him have his say in a second. Number 4 was War for the Planet of the Apes with 20.4 million.
Wow, that thing dipped.
Yeah, it dipped 63.7%.
Oh,
so
God.
It's now at 97 million domestically and 174 million worldwide. It's got a $150 million budget. So,
fuck.
Yeah, not doing great. People, please don't be stupid idiots. Go see this movie. Number 3 is Spider-Man: Homecoming with 22 million.
I completely forgot about Spider-Man. Shit.
I know.
What's wrong with me?
I don't know. It's at 251.7 million domestically and at 571.7 worldwide. It's making its money.
Oh yeah.
It is doing what Cuba Gooding Jr. told it to do. Okay. Number 2, Girls Trip with 30.3 or 30.4 million. I always like to be very accurate. This has a $19 million budget, so it's already made that back, and it's already like 8 million on its way from breaking even. And then this spent quite a bit on marketing, but it's going to kill it. And I'm be renting that one down the road, probably with Rough Night, just as a double feature. Uh, and then yeah, Dunkirk is at number one with 50.5 million at a $150 million budget, and it's worldwide already at 105.9 million. So it's
That's
still
not bad.
It's not bad. It's not great,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's going to have to make obviously 300 million. I feel like that's possible, but it may just not take. It may take a long time.
Yeah.
I think it'll probably take a little bit longer, but I think it could get there with this worldwide figure. So that is the number. Oh, and then there was one smaller release, Landline, that came out. That's the new film with Jenny Slate from the director of Obvious Child, and it kind of opened up in limited release in 4 theaters this week, and it made 52,000. So that's a pretty good number for 4 theaters. So yeah, it's open. It's expanding next week, and I think it goes fully wide on the 4th. And I can't wait to see that. I don't know when I will, but I'm sure I will at some point. And yeah, so those are the box office numbers this week.
Yeah, it's. I don't think anything is like really surprising. It's just like, it's like I said last week. With all these movies coming out every single week, you gotta make your money on the first weekend and run, because then the next week you're gonna have something else coming out, and then something else coming out, and something else coming out. Until next weekend, when we realize the apocalypse is happening with the Emoji Movie, we are not reviewing that, folks. So yeah, that will do it for this week's show, guys. But let us know down below what you think about all the topics we've talked about, and of course the movie reviews. And yeah, it was a long episode, but we are almost. We're about 10 minutes longer than Transformers: Age of Extinction, and I'll guarantee you had a more fun time with us. So, so yeah, next week's show, like Joel said earlier, Comic-Con stuff, going to be heavy news and trailer heavy episode, and our review of Atomic Blonde should be a lot of fun. And no, do not ask, I'm not going to review the movie where Patrick Stewart is literally playing a literal pile of shit. So I'm not, no, fucking no, just stop it. All right,
so just to be clear, yes.
Joel's a yes. I'm a heavy no, but that's what we're going to be going with. So yeah, so that is this week's episode, guys. For episode 192, we are 8 away from the epic 200th episode, and of course, shortly following after that will be our 4-year anniversary. Should be a lot of fun. So before we go, Joel, where can the people find you online?
You can find me at my own website, joelonfilm.com. I review movies weekly there. You can find me at dallasmoviescreenings.com, for which this is the official podcast. You can find Chase's video reviews there too. And then you can find me on Twitter at Copling_Joel. Follow all my rambling thoughts that come out of my face hole.
Oh, that's how you were going to end it? Well, Joel's getting better as a businessman, I guess. All right, so, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at RealChaseLee. Follow on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. Joel and I are all over the fucking internet, so please find this podcast, spread it around, let people know that this is the definitive movie podcast that you listen to and you enjoy it as well, because that's the whole point, guys. If you aren't movie fans and you accidentally stumbled across this, hopefully we convince you to be one. Joel and I are very passionate, and we hope we get you passionate out there, so spread this around and help us out. All the links will be in the description below, by the way. Also, I was a guest on the another podcast. It's co-hosted by one of my friends here in Dallas. F is for Film. I'm on their War for the Planet of the Apes episode, so if you want to go listen to that, then you go to iTunes, type in F is for Film, click on that episode, War for the Planet of the Apes. Tell them that I sent you there, and tell them that you want me back, and we'll continue to guest star. That's how that works, folks. So just go listen to that. If you like it, let them know that you want me back. That was a lot of fun this week, so listen to that as well. And of course, the intro and outro music is done by my friends band Fervent Roze, and their link in the description is in the description below as well. I'm Chase Lee. That is Joel over there in the corner, crying because I like the Jigsaw trailer. And we will see you guys next week for episode 193, when we review Atomic Blonde and a shit ton of news that we just could not get to this week. So we'll see you guys next week. Play the outro music, son.
Bye.